The scale shift is immediate and disorienting, because the ocean that felt vast and empty when viewed through the life of a small grazer or ambush predator suddenly becomes a crowded, compressed arena when a humpback whale enters the frame, and the rules of feeding expand from individual strikes into fluid engineering performed at a size where water itself becomes part of the mechanism. In cold, nutrient-rich seas, where sunlight fuels massive blooms of plankton and entire food webs stack upward into dense columns of life. The humpback does not hunt with teeth, claws, or pursuit, but with geometry, coordination, and pressure, converting three-dimensional space into a temporary trap that no single fish can escape once the system is complete. The whale's body, immense yet surprisingly agile, moves through the water not as a blunt instrument, but as a precise tool designed to shape currents, redirect motion, and manipulate panic at a scale that turns thousands of individual animals into a single, edible mass. The feeding grounds themselves set the stage for this strategy, because humpback whales concentrate their efforts in regions where productivity peaks, often along continental shelves, upwelling zones, or polar waters where cold currents bring nutrients to the surface. These environments support massive schools of small fish and krill, organisms that survive through numbers, synchrony, and constant motion, forming living clouds that shift and pulse in response to predators. For most hunters, breaking into these schools is inefficient, because individual prey scatter in all directions, forcing repeated chases that burn energy quickly. The humpback solves this problem not by targeting individuals, but by reshaping the behavior of the entire group, exploiting the very instincts that normally protect prey. Bubble net feeding begins long before the surface erupts in chaos, with subtle positioning beneath the school as one or more whales descend below the prey, orienting themselves with remarkable spatial awareness. Despite their size, humpbacks are not clumsy, and their sensory systems allow them to detect prey density, movement patterns, and even the collective reactions of fish to approaching threats. Their hearing is particularly acute, tuned to low-frequency sounds that travel far through water, but they also rely on tactile feedback, pressure changes, and visual cues in clearer waters, integrating information across senses to time the maneuver precisely. Once in position, the whale releases a stream of bubbles from its blowhole, swimming upward in a tightening spiral that forms a vertical wall of air. To a human observer, bubbles seem insubstantial, but to small fish, they represent a physical and psychological barrier because crossing through dense columns of rising air disrupts sensory perception, interferes with lateral line detection, and creates a confusing, turbulent environment that triggers avoidance behavior. As the spiral closes, the fish are driven inward, compressing into an increasingly dense ball, their instinct to flee guiding them exactly where the whale wants them to go. The brilliance of this strategy lies in its simplicity, because the whale does not need to chase or corner prey through speed, only to provide a boundary that the prey refuse to cross, allowing panic to do the work of compression. In many cases, bubble net feeding is not a solo act, but a coordinated effort involving multiple whales, each taking on specific roles within the formation. Some individuals focus on producing the bubble curtain, while others vocalize beneath the school, emitting low-frequency calls that further disorient and herd the fish upward. These sounds are not communication in the social sense, but functional tools, acoustic pressure applied to influence prey behavior, and studies have shown that variations in call structure can alter the effectiveness of the feeding event depending on prey species and environmental conditions. This suggests a level of behavioral flexibility and learning that elevates bubble net feeding from instinctive action to a form of adaptive problem-solving. As the prey density increases, the ocean itself seems to tighten, the shimmering school transforming into a single dark mass just below the surface. And it is at this moment that the scale of the humpback's feeding becomes most apparent. With the net complete, the whale accelerates upward from below, jaws opening wide in a movement that feels less like biting and more like engulfment, because the mouth does not target individual fish, but the entire volume of water containing them. The lower jaw drops, the throat pleats expand like an accordion, and the whale surges forward, capturing a quantity of water that can equal or exceed its own body volume in a single motion. This eruption is not violent in the conventional sense, but it is overwhelming because it represents the sudden conversion of controlled flow into capture, turning a carefully structured trap into a delivery system. Fish caught in this surge do not have time to scatter because the density that protected them moments earlier now works against them, eliminating escape routes and forcing them into the whale's expanding oral cavity. The humpback does not chew or tear. Instead, it relies on baleen plates lining the upper jaw, long fringe structures made of keratin that act as a sieve, allowing water to drain out while retaining prey. As the whale closes its mouth and pushes the water back out through the baleen, fish and krill are trapped inside, funneled toward the throat and swallowed whole. This process happens with astonishing efficiency because a single lunge can capture tens of thousands of individual prey, representing an enormous caloric intake achieved through a single coordinated movement. The energy economics of this strategy are critical because humpbacks undertake long migrations between feeding and breeding grounds, traveling thousands of kilometers each year, and must accumulate sufficient fat reserves during feeding seasons to sustain them through months of fasting. The effectiveness of bubble net feeding rests on a simple but powerful principle. Density converts abundance into accessibility. Individually, small fish are agile, fast, and difficult to catch, but when compressed into a tight formation, they become collectively vulnerable, their numbers turning from defense into liability. The whale does not defeat prey through speed or aggression, but by manipulating group behavior, turning fear and coordination into a trap. This reflects a broader truth in marine ecology, where the most successful predators are often those that exploit emergent properties of prey groups rather than individual weaknesses. From an engineering perspective, bubble net feeding is remarkable because it uses minimal energy to create a temporary structure in an otherwise structureless environment. Bubbles rise naturally, requiring little force to produce, yet when arranged deliberately, they form barriers that function as walls, fences, and funnels. The humpback transforms buoyancy into architecture, shaping the water column itself into a tool, and this ability to manipulate fluid dynamics places it among the most sophisticated non-human foragers on the planet. Unlike animals that build physical traps, the whale's net dissolves seconds after use, leaving no trace, perfectly suited to a medium where permanence is impossible. The social dimension of this feeding strategy adds another layer of complexity, because not all humpbacks participate equally, and roles within the group can shift depending on experience, age, and environmental conditions. Younger whales may learn by observing older individuals, gradually refining timing and positioning, while experienced whales adjust techniques in response to changes in prey behavior or water clarity. This cultural transmission of feeding strategies has been documented in multiple populations, suggesting that bubble net feeding is not purely instinctive, but learned and shared across generations, a rare example of socially mediated foraging in large marine mammals. The contrast between the whale's size and its prey becomes especially striking when viewed in the context of this behavior, because the largest animals on Earth are sustained not by consuming large prey, but by harvesting vast numbers of small organisms through precision and coordination. The humpback's anatomy reflects this specialization, with a skull and jaw structure optimized for engulfment, a throat capable of dramatic expansion, and baleen adapted to filter prey of specific sizes. Every aspect of its feeding apparatus is tuned to this mode of consumption, reinforcing the idea that gigantism in whales is inseparable from filter feeding and the exploitation of dense prey fields. As feeding events repeat across a season, the impact of humpbacks extends beyond their own survival, influencing prey populations, nutrient distribution, and even the structure of marine ecosystems. By consuming large quantities of fish and krill, whales help regulate population sizes, while their movements and waste products redistribute nutrients vertically and horizontally through the water column, a process sometimes referred to as the whale pump. This nutrient cycling supports plankton growth, indirectly fueling the very food webs that sustain the whales themselves, illustrating a feedback loop where feeding behavior contributes to ecosystem productivity. When the feeding is done and the surface settles back into relative calm, the only evidence of the event may be a lingering shimmer where the school once was. The bubble net already vanished, and the whales descending again into deeper water. There is no blood, no debris, no visible struggle, only absence and redistribution. A quiet reminder that some of the most powerful feeding events in the ocean leave almost no trace. The drama exists not in violence, but in scale and coordination, in the transformation of water into a tool and panic into structure. In closing, the contrast could not be sharper. The smallest predators deceive, scrape, or ambush one victim at a time, while the humpback whale feeds by engineering entire volumes of ocean into traps, converting fluid space into a net and density into nourishment. The biggest animals on Earth survive not through domination or brute force, but through an elegant manipulation of physics and behavior, turning water itself into a feeding apparatus. It is not the bite that defines the humpback, but the surge, a single massive motion that captures the labor of thousands of fish in one breath, proving that in the ocean, size does not replace strategy, but amplifies it. The water around a barracuda always feels tighter than it should, even in open space, because this is an animal that compresses chaos into straight lines, turning the sprawling geometry of the ocean into a narrow corridor where speed and timing erase choice. Unlike predators that patrol reefs or weave through kelp with curiosity and improvisation, the barracuda occupies the water column with a stillness that feels deliberate and unsettling, hovering in place as if suspended by wires, body rigid, fins barely adjusting to currents, eyes locked forward with a focus that suggests calculation rather than hunger. In tropical and subtropical seas, where light penetrates deeply and schools of fish flicker like broken mirrors near the surface, the barracuda waits not as an ambush hunter hiding in structure, but as an interceptor controlling space, positioning itself where prey movement will eventually betray them. The first thing to understand about barracuda feeding is that it is not a contest of strength, endurance, or dominance, because the animal has no interest in grappling, chasing, or wearing prey down. The barracuda feeds by subtraction, removing individuals from a system faster than that system can react, and this defines both its behavior and its anatomy. Its body is built like a projectile, long, narrow, and stiff, minimizing drag and maximizing acceleration in a single direction, with a powerful tail that delivers explosive thrust rather than sustained propulsion. This is not a sprinter that zigzags or adapts mid-chase. It is a missile that commits fully once the launch begins, because hesitation would waste the only advantage that matters. Schools of fish represent both opportunity and obstacle for a barracuda, because collective movement creates confusion, but also protection, with individuals shielded by neighbors and rapid directional changes. Rather than charging directly into these groups, the barracuda stations itself along their edges, hovering just outside the zone of synchronized motion, watching for the inevitable failure points that emerge as fish adjust spacing, fatigue, or respond to other disturbances. Predation pressure in the ocean rarely comes from a single source, and prey schools are constantly negotiating threats from below, above, and within, creating moments where cohesion weakens and individuals drift just far enough from the group to become vulnerable. The barracuda's sensory systems are tuned to detect these moments with ruthless efficiency. Its large eyes provide sharp vision in bright water, allowing it to track movement and contrast with precision, while its lateral line senses subtle vibrations and pressure changes that reveal acceleration and panic within the school. Unlike predators that rely heavily on smell or complex problem-solving, the barracuda's decision-making window is short and decisive, built around recognizing a single error and exploiting it instantly. When a fish breaks formation, hesitates, or turns at the wrong angle, the geometry of the encounter collapses into a straight line, and that is the line the barracuda takes. The launch itself is almost anticlimactic, because it happens faster than the surrounding environment seems to register. The barracuda does not coil, stalk, or telegraph intent. It simply accelerates, tail snapping once or twice, as the body surges forward in a direct, uncorrected burst. There is no weaving or adjustment mid-strike, because the entire attack is based on interception rather than pursuit, meeting the prey where it will be rather than where it is. This requires precise timing and spatial awareness, but it eliminates the need for prolonged effort, allowing the barracuda to conserve energy while remaining lethally effective. When contact occurs, The interaction is brief to the point of brutality, because the barracuda's mouth is not designed for holding, crushing, or manipulating prey, but for cutting it off from escape in a fraction of a second. The head is narrow and tapered, reducing drag during the strike, and the jaws extend forward with a mechanical simplicity that prioritizes reach and closure speed. Lining these jaws are long, sharp teeth, uneven in size and spacing, designed to grab and slice rather than puncture deeply or crush bone. The teeth do not interlock in a way that suggests chewing or processing. Instead, they form a cutting edge that inflicts catastrophic damage on first contact. This design reflects a feeding strategy where prey does not need to be subdued or controlled after capture, because the damage inflicted during the initial strike is often sufficient to end the encounter immediately. Smaller fish may be swallowed whole if alignment allows, while larger prey are frequently struck, released, and consumed in pieces, the barracuda circling back to collect fragments without urgency. This behavior underscores the absence of sentiment or investment in individual prey, because the goal is not ownership, but efficiency, maximizing caloric intake per unit of effort without risking injury or prolonged engagement. The simplicity of this approach is deceptive, because it relies on a precise balance between patience and action that few predators maintain consistently. The barracuda may hover for long periods without striking, conserving energy and gathering information, because unnecessary launches waste fuel and expose the animal to potential counterattacks from other predators or territorial disputes. This restraint is critical in environments where speed is expensive and mistakes carry consequences, reinforcing the idea that barracuda feeding is not impulsive but calculated, even if the calculation itself happens quickly. Ecologically, the barracuda occupies a role as a regulator of movement and behavior rather than sheer numbers, exerting pressure on prey populations by targeting individuals that deviate from group norms. This selective removal reinforces schooling behavior, favoring tighter formations and faster responses, while also preventing certain species from dominating through unchecked abundance. Unlike grazers or filter feeders that reshape habitats through consumption, the barracuda shapes ecosystems through fear and correction, enforcing rules of spacing and vigilance that ripple through the food web. This role becomes especially apparent near reefs and drop-offs, where prey species transition between open water and structured environments, creating bottlenecks that predators exploit. Barracudas often position themselves along these corridors, using the contrast between light and shadow to enhance visibility and control engagement angles. In these moments, the water feels staged rather than random, with predators and prey occupying predictable lanes shaped by physics, light, and habit. The barracuda does not need to dominate the entire space, only to control a narrow slice of it where mistakes are likely. The teeth themselves deserve attention not for their ferocity, but for their functional honesty, because they reflect a design that does exactly what it needs to do and nothing more. There is no redundancy, no ornamentation, no capacity for grinding or processing, only sharp edges arranged for maximum damage in minimum time. This is a mouth built for violence without spectacle, where success is measured not by struggle, but by silence immediately after impact. In this sense, the barracuda's feeding strategy mirrors urban ambush rather than wilderness chase, prioritizing surprise, speed, and exit over endurance or dominance displays. Despite its reputation, the barracuda is not a reckless killer, nor does it attack indiscriminately, because its strikes are expensive and require alignment, timing, and opportunity. Most of its time is spent waiting, hovering in apparent inactivity, conserving energy and monitoring the flow of life around it. This waiting is not passive, but alert, a constant calibration of position relative to prey movement, current, and light. The barracuda's stillness is as important as its speed, because it allows the animal to remain unnoticed until the geometry of the encounter favors action. When viewed through this lens, the barracuda becomes less a symbol of aggression and more an embodiment of efficiency, a predator that has stripped feeding down to its essential components and discarded everything else. It does not need teamwork, tools, traps, or endurance, only the ability to recognize a single error and act on it faster than any correction can occur. In doing so, it occupies a niche that rewards precision over power, restraint over frenzy, and timing over persistence. As the water settles after a strike, there is rarely evidence of what just happened, because the interaction was too brief to leave traces. A school tightens, reshapes, and moves on, the missing individual absorbed into the collective memory of risk rather than visible aftermath. The barracuda resumes its position, hovering once more, body aligned with invisible vectors of movement, waiting for the next deviation that will collapse into a straight line. In the end, barracuda feeding is not dramatic, elaborate, or complex, and that is precisely what makes it effective. It is speed plus teeth, interception rather than pursuit, and a commitment to direct action without hesitation or waste. This is not the elegance of strategy or the spectacle of power, but something closer to street violence in ecological form, quick, direct, and unforgiving, where the outcome is decided before anyone else realizes a decision was made. The reef does not notice the octopus arriving, because arrival is not how this animal operates, and presence is something it deliberately avoids advertising, preferring instead to dissolve into rock, shadow, and texture until even the idea of an intruder feels misplaced. In shallow coastal waters, along coral outcrops, rubble fields, and kelp-strewn slopes, the octopus does not patrol like a predator or wait like an ambush hunter. It infiltrates. Its body lacks rigidity, lacks a fixed outline, and lacks any commitment to shape, allowing it to flow into spaces that were never meant to contain an animal of its mass, slipping between stones, compressing through crevices, and flattening itself against the substrate until its silhouette disappears entirely. The ocean here is full of hiding places, but the octopus treats them not as shelter, but as entry points, doorways into the private lives of other animals that never evolved defenses against something that can become part of the environment itself. The arms are the first clue that this is not a conventional hunter, because each one operates with a degree of independence that borders on autonomy, probing, tasting, and testing the surroundings as if guided by separate intentions. Lined with hundreds of suction cups, each packed with chemoreceptors and tactile sensors, the arms do not simply grab, they investigate. A single arm may slip into a narrow crack, feeling its way along the contours of rock, while another traces the edge of a shell and another anchors the body in place, distributing force so the octopus can apply leverage without exposing itself. This decentralization is not inefficiency, it is the core of the octopus's advantage, allowing it to multitask in environments where prey hide in complexity rather than open space. From the perspective of a crab wedged beneath a stone or a mollusk sealed inside its shell, the encounter with an octopus does not resemble an attack so much as an invasion, because there is no single direction of threat, no clear moment when danger becomes obvious. Suction cups make contact silently, adhering with adjustable force that can grip rough rock or smooth shell equally well, and once attached, they do not release easily. Each cup can exert pressure independently, creating a distributed grip that resists escape in every direction at once, turning the prey's own shelter into a liability. The octopus does not need to overpower prey through speed or mass. It needs only to deny them movement and apply steady, intelligent force over time. This is where leverage replaces velocity as the defining currency of predation, because the octopus is not built for prolonged chases or explosive pursuits. Its body, while capable of brief bursts of jet-propelled motion, is optimized for manipulation rather than sprinting, and its hunting strategy reflects this priority. By accessing prey in their refuges, the octopus bypasses the need to outrun them, instead turning confined spaces into traps. Crabs are pulled from burrows, clams are pried from rocks, and snails are rotated and repositioned until their defenses are compromised, all through patient application of force that feels less like a fight and more like a problem being solved. Hidden at the center of this system is the octopus's most underestimated weapon, a structure so small and concealed that it is easy to forget until the consequences become obvious. The beak. Located where the arms converge, this hard, chitinous mouthpart resembles the beak of a parrot more than the jaws of a predator. Yet it is capable of exerting tremendous pressure, sufficient to crack shells, pierce exoskeletons, and dismantle prey that would be inaccessible to animals many times larger. The beak does not tear or chew in a prolonged way. It delivers precise, decisive bites at vulnerable points, often after the arms have positioned the prey perfectly, aligning weak spots with mechanical inevitability. In some cases, the octopus supplements this mechanical force with chemistry, injecting venom through the beak into prey to immobilize them, dissolving muscle tissue and easing the extraction of edible material. This combination of grip, leverage, and biochemical assistance allows the octopus to handle prey that would otherwise require brute force or specialized crushing tools. The elegance of this system lies in its adaptability, because the octopus can adjust tactics based on prey type, using prying and pulling for some, drilling and envenomation for others, and brute cracking when conditions allow. The aftermath of these hunts often accumulates in places the octopus considers home, small dens carved beneath rocks or coral heads where the animal retreats to feed and rest. Over time, these dens develop a distinctive signature: piles of discarded shells, crab carapaces, and fragments of exoskeletons arranged in loose heaps outside the entrance, unmistakable evidence of repeated successful predation. These middens serve as silent records of the octopus's activity, marking its territory not through scent or sound, but through debris, a forensic trail that reveals diet, hunting success, and even individual preference. From an ecological perspective, these shell piles are more than morbid decoration, because they influence the microhabitat around the den, providing shelter for smaller organisms and altering local nutrient dynamics as organic material breaks down. In this way, the octopus shapes its environment indirectly, not by building structures, but by accumulating the remains of its meals, contributing to the complexity of the reef in subtle ways. The den itself becomes a focal point of interaction, a place where predator and ecosystem intersect through repeated use. What makes the octopus especially unsettling as a predator is not just its physical toolkit, but the intelligence that coordinates it. With a nervous system distributed throughout its arms, each limb capable of local decision-making, the octopus processes information in parallel, allowing it to respond rapidly to changing conditions without routing every signal through a central brain. This architecture enables behaviors that appear deliberate and exploratory, as arms adjust grip strength, change approach angles, and respond to resistance with problem-solving rather than brute persistence. Studies have shown octopuses opening jars, navigating mazes, and learning from experience. But these laboratory demonstrations pale in comparison to the everyday problem-solving required to extract prey from complex reef structures. In the wild, this intelligence manifests as flexibility rather than repetition, with octopuses altering hunting strategies based on past success, environmental conditions, and prey availability. An octopus that encounters resistant prey may abandon it temporarily, returning later with a different approach, or repositioning itself to apply force more effectively. This willingness to adapt reduces wasted effort and minimizes exposure, reinforcing a feeding strategy built on efficiency rather than dominance. Despite their intelligence and dexterity, octopuses remain vulnerable animals, lacking shells, spines, or venomous defenses sufficient to deter larger predators. And this vulnerability shapes their behavior profoundly. Camouflage becomes as important as hunting skill, with chromatophores in the skin, allowing rapid changes in color, texture, and pattern to match surrounding rock, sand, or coral. These changes are not mere visual tricks, but integrated responses involving posture, skin texture, and movement, allowing the octopus to disappear even while actively hunting. This ability to remain unseen while interacting directly with the environment blurs the line between predator and background, reinforcing the sense that the octopus is less an animal moving through space and more a force embedded within it. The reliance on access and leverage rather than speed reflects an evolutionary path that prioritizes cognitive and manipulative abilities over physical endurance, a trade-off that has allowed octopuses to exploit niches inaccessible to faster or stronger predators. By focusing on prey that hide rather than flee, the octopus occupies a unique position in the food web, targeting organisms that invest heavily in structural defenses and refugees. This pressure influences the evolution of shells, burrows, and defensive behaviors, contributing to an ongoing arms race where intelligence and architecture compete across species. The feeding behavior of the octopus also highlights a broader principle in ecology: that predation does not always involve pursuit or spectacle. and that some of the most effective hunters operate through infiltration and control. By accessing prey directly within their shelters, the octopus reduces the energy cost of hunting and minimizes the risk associated with open water encounters. This strategy is particularly effective in structurally complex environments like reefs, where hiding places are abundant and visual detection is unreliable. As the octopus completes a hunt and retreats into its den, the reef returns to apparent calm, the only indication of disturbance being the gradual growth of shell piles and the subtle rearrangement of stones near its lair. There is no chase to witness, no dramatic strike to capture on camera, only the quiet evidence of removal, the absence of organisms that once occupied specific niches. Over time, these absences shape community composition, favoring species that can either resist manipulation or reproduce quickly enough to offset losses. The octopus does not need to dominate space or announce its presence to succeed, because its power lies in precision, adaptability, and access. It does not rely on speed to outrun prey or strength to overpower them in open combat, only on the ability to reach where others cannot, apply force where it matters most, and retreat before retaliation becomes possible. This makes its feeding strategy both efficient and deeply unsettling, because it undermines assumptions about safety, refuge, and defense. In the end, the octopus is a burglar rather than a brawler, entering uninvited, dismantling defenses quietly, and leaving behind evidence only after the fact. 8 arms function as lockpicks, crowbars, and restraints all at once, coordinating to deny escape and control the encounter completely. The beak, small and hidden, delivers the final act with mechanical certainty, reducing complex organisms to fragments that can be carried back to the den. It does not need mercy, speed, or spectacle, only access and leverage, and in environments built on hiding, those qualities are enough. 8 arms, 1 beak, 0 mercy. The first impression of a manta ray is scale without aggression, a massive body moving through open water with a calm that feels almost deliberate, as though nothing in this environment is capable of challenging it. Yet that calm is deceptive, because the manta's survival does not depend on dominance or threat, but on an entirely different logic of consumption that turns abundance itself into fuel. In tropical and subtropical oceans, where sunlight penetrates deeply and plankton blooms pulse through the water like invisible seasons, the manta ray operates not as a hunter chasing prey, but as a living filtration system, converting vast volumes of seawater into nourishment by exploiting density, flow, and timing rather than speed or force. This inversion of expectation, where one of the largest animals in the water survives on some of the smallest organisms available, defines everything about the manta's anatomy, movement, and relationship with the ecosystem. To understand how a manta ray feeds, it is necessary to shift perspective away from individual prey and towards systems, because plankton are not targets to be selected or pursued, but clouds of microscopic life that drift, concentrate, and disperse according to currents, temperature gradients, and nutrient availability. These organisms include tiny crustaceans, larval fish, and other drifting life forms that rise and fall with the productivity of the ocean, forming blooms that can stretch for kilometers or collapse within days. The manta ray does not create these blooms. It tracks them, moving through the ocean in response to conditions that are invisible to casual observation, but predictable within the broader rhythms of marine productivity. The feeding event itself begins with posture rather than pursuit, as the manta ray adjusts its body to maximize intake while minimizing effort. Its enormous mouth opens at the front of the head, a configuration that immediately distinguishes it from bottom-feeding rays or benthic foragers, and allows it to swim directly into plankton-rich water rather than sweeping prey in from below. On either side of the mouth, the cephalic fins unfurl and curl inward, forming curved channels that guide water toward the oral opening, shaping flow in a way that increases the concentration of particles entering the mouth. These fins are not passive flaps, but dynamic tools, capable of subtle adjustments that respond to changes in water density and plankton distribution, ensuring that the manta captures the richest possible stream with each movement. As water enters the mouth, it encounters a series of gill rakers, specialized structures that function as a filtration system, allowing water to pass through while trapping food particles above a certain size. Unlike the baleen of whales, which forms long plates, manta gill rakers create a mesh that relies on both physical spacing and fluid dynamics to separate food from water. The manta does not need to close its mouth repeatedly or chew because feeding is continuous, a steady flow of intake where water enters, food is retained, and filtered water exits through the gills. This process transforms forward motion into feeding, allowing the manta to harvest energy simply by swimming. The efficiency of this system lies in its scalability, because the larger the manta, the more water it can process, and the more food it can extract without increasing effort proportionally. A single manta ray can filter thousands of liters of water in a short period, converting diffuse biological material into usable energy with remarkable consistency. This low-cost, high-yield strategy supports the manta's large body size, slow metabolism, and extended lifespan, allowing it to thrive without the need for aggressive hunting or frequent bursts of speed. In this sense, the manta ray resembles an industrial processor more than a predator, optimized for throughput rather than precision. Swimming behavior plays a crucial role in maximizing feeding efficiency, because the manta does not move randomly through plankton blooms, but adopts patterns that increase intake while conserving energy. When plankton concentrations are low, mantas may cruise steadily through open water, mouths open, filtering continuously as they travel between productive zones. When concentrations increase, they shift to more complex movements, including looping, barrel rolling, or repeatedly circling within dense patches, effectively remaining within the highest yield area for as long as conditions allow. These movements are not wasteful displays, but calculated responses to patchy resources, ensuring that time and energy are invested where returns are greatest. In some regions, mantas aggregate in large numbers during peak plankton blooms, forming feeding assemblies that resemble drifting fleets rather than competitive groups. Despite their size, mantas show little aggression toward one another while feeding, because the resource they exploit is not easily monopolized. Plankton does not flee or defend itself, and the sheer volume available during blooms reduces competition, allowing multiple individuals to feed side by side without conflict. This tolerance reflects the underlying economics of filter feeding, where success depends on access to flow rather than exclusion of rivals. The distribution of plankton blooms follows patterns shaped by ocean weather rather than daily cycles, driven by seasonal upwellings, temperature shifts, and nutrient inputs from land and deep water. Manta rays respond to these patterns through migration, moving between feeding and aggregation sites in ways that mirror agricultural harvests on land. Rather than roaming aimlessly, mantas track productivity hotspots, returning to the same regions year after year when conditions align. These movements are not always long-distance migrations like those of whales, but they reflect a deep attunement to environmental cues, including water temperature, current direction, and even lunar cycles that influence plankton behavior. This relationship between mantas and plankton blooms positions the ray as a participant in a larger ecological rhythm, linking microscopic producers to large-scale consumers through a chain of energy transfer that begins with sunlight and ends with muscle movement. By feeding on plankton, mantas help regulate bloom dynamics, removing biomass and redistributing nutrients through waste products that sink or drift, contributing to nutrient cycling within the ecosystem. This role is subtle but significant because it influences the structure of plankton communities and the availability of resources for other filter feeders and planktivorous fish. The manta's anatomy reinforces this ecological role through features that prioritize endurance and efficiency over speed or force. Its wings, broad and powerful, generate lift that allows it to glide through water with minimal effort, converting forward motion into stable, energy-efficient travel. The cartilage-based skeleton reduces weight while maintaining strength, and the smooth skin minimizes drag, further lowering the cost of movement. Unlike fast predators that rely on bursts of anaerobic power, mantas operate largely within aerobic limits, sustaining long periods of activity without fatigue, perfectly suited to continuous feeding. Sensory adaptations also support this feeding strategy, because locating plankton blooms requires more than sight alone. While mantas possess large eyes capable of detecting movement and contrast, plankton concentrations are often invisible to the naked eye, appearing only as subtle changes in water clarity or color. Mantas rely on a combination of visual cues, chemical signals, and possibly even geomagnetic sensitivity to orient themselves within productive zones. Their brains are among the largest relative to body size of any fish, suggesting advanced processing capabilities that support spatial memory, learning, and environmental awareness, traits that enhance their ability to track and exploit transient resources. Despite their gentle appearance, manta rays are not passive organisms drifting through abundance, but active participants in shaping their own feeding environment through movement and aggregation. By circling and swimming through blooms, they may influence plankton distribution, creating localized density gradients that further enhance feeding efficiency. In this way, the manta becomes both consumer and modifier of its resource, engaging in a feedback loop where behavior and environment interact dynamically. The contrast between appearance and function is what makes manta ray feeding so compelling, because the animal's size suggests power, yet its strategy depends on restraint, flow, and patience. There is no strike, no bite, no visible violence, only the steady intake of life at a scale that is easy to underestimate precisely because it lacks drama. Over the course of a feeding season, however, the cumulative effect is immense, with individual mantas consuming vast quantities of plankton, supporting growth, reproduction, and long-term survival through sheer volume rather than intensity. This strategy also explains why mantas are particularly vulnerable to disruptions in plankton dynamics, because changes in ocean temperature, nutrient availability, and current patterns can alter bloom timing and location. When these patterns shift, mantas may struggle to find sufficient food, highlighting the tight coupling between large filter feeders and the smallest components of the marine ecosystem. The manta's dependence on plankton underscores a broader ecological truth, that even the largest animals are constrained by the productivity of the smallest, and that stability at the base of the food web is essential for sustaining life at the top. As a manta ray glides past, mouth open, cephalic fins guiding invisible currents into its body, it is easy to interpret the scene as peaceful or gentle. Yet this perception obscures the scale of consumption taking place. Each second of swimming represents liters of water processed, thousands of organisms filtered, and energy transferred upward through the food web. The manta does not need to chase, corner, or overpower, because it has aligned its biology with the structure of abundance itself, turning water into a conveyor belt and plankton into fuel. In the end, manta ray feeding is a lesson in efficiency without aggression, a reminder that power in the ocean does not always announce itself through force. By exploiting density, flow, and seasonal productivity, the manta ray sustains a massive body on tiny prey with minimal waste, operating as a living industrial system embedded within the rhythms of ocean weather. It looks gentle, almost serene, but the reality is one of industrial-scale consumption, a continuous harvest that transforms drifting life into motion, growth, and survival on a scale that few predators, no matter how fierce, can match. The warning is written directly into the face of the pufferfish, although most observers miss it at first, distracted by the rounded body, the slow hovering movements, and the almost comical proportions that suggest harmlessness rather than threat. In shallow reefs, seagrass beds, and coastal flats where visibility is high and textures are complex, the puffer does not look like a predator built for confrontation, yet everything about its feeding ecology revolves around one simple rule that governs its survival. Nothing touches the mouth without consequence. This is not a fast hunter, not an ambush specialist, and not a filter feeder riding abundance, but an animal whose entire relationship with the environment is defined by access to hard, armored food and the machinery required to break it open again and again. The mouth of a pufferfish is not a soft opening meant for nibbling or suction, but a compact mechanical system dominated by fused, beak-like teeth that form a rigid cutting and crushing surface. Unlike the individual teeth of most fishes, which are replaced as they wear down, puffer teeth grow continuously, merging into plates that meet with precise alignment and immense pressure. This design allows the puffer to process prey that would be inaccessible to animals of similar size, including snails with thick shells, crabs protected by layered exoskeletons, and bivalves anchored tightly to rock. The mouth does not tear flesh or slice muscle. It pulverizes defenses, converting armor into fragments that can be swallowed safely. Watching a pufferfish feed reveals a kind of quiet brutality that contrasts sharply with its appearance, because the act is not hurried or violent, but deliberate and methodical. The fish approaches a shell or crustacean with controlled movements, positioning the prey carefully between its jaws before applying steady pressure. There is no thrashing or dramatic struggle, only a brief pause followed by the unmistakable crack of structure giving way. This is not predation driven by chase or surprise, but by mechanical advantage, where success depends on alignment, leverage, and repeated use of force rather than speed. The continuous growth of the teeth introduces an unusual constraint into the puffer's life, because feeding is not optional maintenance, but mandatory upkeep. If the puffer does not regularly crush hard prey, its teeth will overgrow, eventually interfering with its ability to feed at all. This creates a direct feedback loop between diet and survival, where access to crunchy food sources determines not only energy intake, but the physical functionality of the mouth itself. In this sense, the puffer is locked into its ecological role by its own anatomy, compelled to seek out shelled prey as a form of self-regulation. This requirement shapes territory selection and daily movement patterns, because puffers do not roam widely in search of opportunity, but instead patrol specific areas rich in the resources they need to maintain their feeding apparatus. Rocky reefs with abundant snails, coral rubble hosting crustaceans, and seagrass beds littered with mollusks become essential landscapes, visited repeatedly and defended through presence rather than aggression. The puffer does not chase rivals away or engage in dramatic displays, but its familiarity with local terrain allows it to exploit resources efficiently while minimizing exposure to predators. The sensory world of the puffer supports this strategy, emphasizing close-range detection and manipulation rather than long-distance tracking. Vision plays a role in identifying prey and navigating complex structures, but tactile feedback through the mouth and body is equally important, allowing the fish to assess hardness, resistance, and positioning before committing to a bite. This reliance on contact reinforces the centrality of the mouth as both tool and interface, the point where the environment is tested, evaluated, and ultimately dismantled. The famous inflation response of pufferfish, often treated as a novelty, is best understood in the context of this feeding-centered existence, because the body's ability to rapidly expand serves to protect the very machinery that keeps the animal alive. By inflating when threatened, the puffer presents a shape that is difficult to bite, swallow, or manipulate, buying time and deterring predators that might otherwise target its head or mouth. The spines that become more pronounced during inflation further discourage contact, reinforcing a defense system that prioritizes preserving the mouth over all else. Chemical defenses add another layer to this protection, as many puffer species accumulate toxins derived from their diet, storing them in skin and organs to deter predation. These toxins are not produced by the fish itself, but by symbiotic bacteria associated with certain prey, creating a chain of dependency that links feeding behavior directly to chemical defense. The puffer's choice of diet therefore influences not only tooth maintenance, but survival probability, illustrating how feeding ecology can cascade into multiple aspects of physiology and behavior. The contrast between appearance and function is especially stark in the pufferfish, because the rounded body and expressive eyes invite underestimation, yet the mouth represents one of the most specialized crushing systems among reef fishes. This mismatch is not accidental. It reflects an evolutionary path that prioritized efficiency in a specific niche rather than intimidation or speed. By focusing on prey that rely on armor rather than escape, the puffer avoids direct competition with faster predators, carving out a role that rewards persistence and mechanical capability. Ecologically, pufferfish influence the composition of benthic communities by regulating populations of snails, crustaceans, and other hard-shelled organisms. This pressure can shape the structure of reefs and seagrass beds, preventing certain species from dominating and maintaining balance within the system. In areas where puffers are removed or decline, shell-bearing prey can proliferate unchecked, altering grazing patterns and substrate composition in ways that ripple outward through the ecosystem. The relationship between puffers and their prey also drives behavioral adaptations on both sides, as shell thickness, attachment strength, and hiding strategies evolve in response to crushing pressure. In turn, puffers refine their feeding techniques, learning how to position prey for maximum leverage and minimize effort. This ongoing exchange exemplifies the evolutionary arms race, not between speed and pursuit, but between defense and mechanical power. Despite their modest size, puffers occupy a role that demands confidence and restraint, because each feeding event involves close contact with prey that may resist or retaliate. Crabs can pinch, snails can cling tightly to rock, and bivalves can snap shut with surprising force. Yet the puffer approaches these challenges without hesitation, relying on the certainty of its bite. This confidence is earned through anatomy rather than aggression, allowing the fish to operate in plain sight without the need for stealth or intimidation. The daily life of a pufferfish becomes a cycle of inspection, testing, and crushing, punctuated by periods of rest and vigilance. It does not need to consume large quantities at once, because its prey are energy-dense and abundant within its territory, allowing for steady intake that supports growth and reproduction. This rhythm aligns well with environments where resources are distributed unevenly but predictably, reinforcing the importance of place over range. From a broader perspective, the pufferfish embodies a feeding strategy that emphasizes specialization over versatility, committing fully to a mode of consumption that demands constant engagement with the physical properties of the environment. The mouth is not just a feeding organ, but a tool that defines where the fish can live, what it can eat, and how it interacts with other species. Every aspect of the puffer's behavior, from movement to defense, orbits this central mechanism. The unsettling realization comes when the cute face resolves into its functional components, and the observer recognizes that the apparent softness masks a device built for repeated destruction. There is no need for speed, venom, or size when the mouth can neutralize defenses directly, reducing complex structures to edible fragments with mechanical certainty. This simplicity is deceptive because it relies on a precise balance of growth, wear, and maintenance that few animals manage so effectively. In the end, the pufferfish is a reminder that danger does not always announce itself through sharp profiles or aggressive movement, and that some of the most effective feeding strategies are hidden behind disarming appearances. The mouth is the axis around which everything else turns, a compact press capable of reshaping the lives of prey and the structure of ecosystems through repeated deliberate use. It looks harmless, almost friendly, until it bites, and by then the lesson is already delivered. This is not a predator built for spectacle, but for function. A small body carrying a jaw press that turns armor into food and territory into opportunity, a pocket-sized machine that thrives on crunch. The first sensation of encountering a moray eel is not motion but exposure, the unsettling awareness that the reef itself is watching back through narrow openings and shadowed cracks that seem too small to contain anything alive, let alone something capable of killing. Coral reefs are often described as bustling cities or underwater gardens, but for prey animals they are also labyrinths, dense networks of crevices, tunnels, and blind corners where survival depends on knowing exactly where to wedge, when to freeze, and how to disappear into the architecture of stone and skeleton. The moray eel is the predator that breaks this logic completely, because it is not built to chase prey through open water or overpower them in space, but to invade the very refuges that evolution taught reef animals to trust. The moray's body immediately explains its purpose: long, flexible, and compressed laterally in a way that allows it to thread itself through passages that would be impassable to most fish. Unlike predators that rely on bursts of speed or wide turning radii, the moray moves by flowing, its muscular body generating propulsion through tight lateral waves that can reverse direction instantly. This flexibility allows it to occupy the reef from the inside out, positioning itself within the stonework rather than around it, turning cracks into hunting grounds and overhangs into ambush points. The reef, which for most animals represents safety through complexity, becomes for the moray a delivery system for prey. The head reinforces this specialization with a blunt, muscular skull and a mouth that is almost always open, a posture often mistaken for aggression, but better understood as preparation. Morays breathe by pumping water across their gills rather than relying on forward motion, allowing them to remain stationary for long periods with jaws parted, teeth exposed, and senses alert. This constant readiness is not a threat display. It is a mechanical necessity that also serves as a warning, advertising capability rather than intent. Within this open mouth are sharp, backward-pointing teeth designed not to slice cleanly or crush, but to hook, secure, and prevent escape, the first stage in a feeding process that does not end at the jawline. The true horror feature of the moray eel lies deeper, hidden from casual view and invisible until the moment it is used, because morays possess a second set of jaws located in the throat, known as pharyngeal jaws, that operate independently of the primary bite. While many fish have pharyngeal teeth used for processing food, the moray's version is uniquely mobile, capable of lunging forward into the oral cavity to seize prey and drag it deeper into the digestive tract. This adaptation solves a fundamental problem faced by predators that hunt in confined spaces, because suction feeding, the rapid expansion of the mouth to pull prey inward, is ineffective when the head is wedged inside a crevice with no room to generate water flow. When a moray strikes, the initial bite is only the beginning, a securing action that locks prey in place but does not immediately complete the capture. Once the teeth sink in, the pharyngeal jaws shoot forward, grasping the prey from within and pulling it backward in a motion that feels less like swallowing and more like hauling cargo through a narrow passage. This grip and drag mechanism bypasses the need for space, leverage, or repeated bites, allowing the moray to feed effectively even when only its head can reach the prey. For animals hiding deep in the reef, this means there is no safe depth, no angle that guarantees protection once contact is made. The hunting logic behind this system becomes clear when viewed through the geometry of the reef, where straight lines are rare and movement is constrained by structure. Many reef fish survive by darting into holes too small for larger predators to follow, relying on the assumption that pursuit requires room to maneuver. The moray eel invalidates this assumption entirely, because it does not need to follow prey fully into the refuge, only far enough to bite. Once the bite occurs, retreat becomes irrelevant, because the eel can feed without repositioning, using its throat jaws to complete the capture regardless of space constraints. This feeding style also explains why morays do not chew in any meaningful sense, because chewing implies repeated processing within the mouth, a behavior incompatible with hunting in tight spaces where holding position is critical. Instead, morays secure prey quickly and then rely on dragging motions, twisting their bodies or retreating deeper into crevices to tear flesh or dismember prey if necessary. In some cases, morays will use the reef itself as leverage, bracing prey against rock while pulling backward, a behavior that further integrates environment and anatomy into a single feeding system. The intimidation factor of this strategy is not incidental, because it alters the behavior of prey species across the reef, reshaping assumptions about safety and refuge. Fish that might otherwise wedge themselves into cracks to wait out danger are forced to consider that the crack itself may house a predator capable of reaching them from within. This creates a psychological pressure that extends beyond direct encounters, influencing where prey choose to rest, forage, and flee, and increasing the cognitive burden of survival in an already complex environment. Moray eels exploit this pressure through patience rather than pursuit, often remaining in the same crevice for extended periods, allowing the surrounding reef community to acclimate to their presence before striking. Their sensory systems support this ambush style, with keen chemoreception that detects chemical cues released by injured or stressed prey, and vision adapted to low light conditions within the reef interior. These senses allow the moray to locate prey without needing to see it directly, extending its reach into darkness and shadow where other predators are effectively blind. Despite their fearsome reputation, morays are not reckless killers, and their feeding behavior reflects a careful balance between opportunity and risk. Many species feed primarily at night, when prey activity patterns shift and the cover of darkness reduces exposure to their own predators. During these nocturnal hunts, morays may leave their daytime shelters to patrol the reef interior, weaving through channels and probing holes with their heads, testing spaces that appear empty but may hold sleeping fish or crustaceans. This methodical exploration reinforces the idea that the moray is less a chaser and more a searcher, a predator that invests time in access rather than speed. The ecological role of moray eels extends beyond individual kills because their feeding habits influence the distribution and behavior of prey populations, contributing to the dynamic balance of reef ecosystems. By targeting fish that rely heavily on structural refuge, morays exert selective pressure that favors vigilance, mobility, and social behaviors over static hiding strategies. This pressure can influence schooling tendencies, foraging times, and habitat use, demonstrating how a predator's anatomy can shape the evolution of entire communities. Morays also participate in complex interactions with other reef predators, sometimes hunting cooperatively in ways that highlight the complementary nature of different feeding strategies. In certain regions, morays have been observed hunting alongside groupers, with the grouper flushing prey from open areas toward crevices where the moray waits, and the moray driving prey out of holes into the open where the grouper can strike. These interactions are not acts of altruism, but pragmatic alliances formed through repeated success, illustrating a level of behavioral flexibility that challenges simplistic views of solitary predators. The physical constraints of the moray's body also impose limits that shape its behavior, because while it excels in confined spaces, it is less effective in open water, where speed and maneuverability matter more. This specialization reinforces its dependence on the reef structure, tying its survival to the health and complexity of coral systems. Degraded reefs with fewer crevices reduce available hunting grounds, highlighting the moray's reliance on intact habitat and underscoring the interconnectedness of predator, prey, and environment. From a physiological standpoint, the moray's feeding system represents a rare evolutionary solution to a specific mechanical problem, demonstrating how natural selection can repurpose existing structures into novel tools. The pharyngeal jaws did not evolve as a separate weapon in isolation, but as a modification of internal feeding structures common to many fish, refined to an extreme in response to ecological constraints. This adaptation allows the moray to occupy a niche that few others can exploit, feeding where suction fails and space is scarce. For prey animals, the presence of a moray eel fundamentally alters the meaning of refuge, because the reef no longer guarantees safety through depth or complexity. Once the moray bites, the interaction enters a phase where escape options collapse rapidly, and the environment itself becomes complicit in the capture. The prey cannot simply wedge deeper or wait for the predator to give up, because the moray does not need to retreat or reposition to continue feeding. The grip has been established, and the hauling mechanism will finish the job. This reality is what gives morays their reputation as relentless and frightening predators, not because they are unusually aggressive, but because they violate the implicit rules that govern reef survival. They do not respect boundaries between hunter and shelter, nor do they allow time for negotiation or endurance. The moment of safety that comes from reaching a crack or hole evaporates once the moray's teeth make contact, transforming refuge into trap. As the moray withdraws back into its crevice after feeding, often leaving behind little visible evidence beyond the absence of prey, the reef resumes its surface activity, fish resettling and invertebrates emerging cautiously from cover. Yet the logic of the environment has been altered, because the lesson has been reinforced again, that safety is conditional, and that some predators are designed not to chase you down, but to reach you where you thought you were untouchable. In the end, the moray eel is a predator built for a world of corners, shadows, and narrow margins, a creature whose most powerful weapon operates out of sight and whose success depends on access rather than speed. Its grip and drag feeding style reflects a ruthless efficiency perfectly matched to the architecture of the reef, dismantling the assumption that hiding equals survival. Once it bites, the equation changes, the rules dissolve, and the reef itself stops being a safe place. The first thing the deep sea teaches you is that nothing down here is honest, and nothing survives by wasting effort. Because every movement has a cost that compounds in darkness where food is rare, pressure is crushing, and mistakes echo for a very long time. In this world, where light fades into a permanent twilight and then disappears entirely, survival is not about speed or strength or elegance, but about efficiency so ruthless that even curiosity itself becomes a liability. And it is here that the monkfish perfects the most shameless lie ever told beneath the surface of the ocean. Suspended above its broad, flattened head is a pale, wavering filament that looks like something small and edible, drifting helplessly in the water. A tiny promise in a place where promises are almost never kept. And the first cruel truth of this ecosystem is that the bait is not bait at all, but flesh, bone, and nerve, grown directly from the predator's own body, engineered by evolution, not to attract prey through force, but to invite it willingly closer. The lure moves subtly, never in a frantic or exaggerated way, because frantic motion would betray hunger and intent, and the deep sea punishes anything that advertises desperation. It sways with the same indifferent rhythm as drifting debris or dying plankton, responding passively to microcurrents and pressure changes, mimicking the physics of something already defeated by the environment. This is not an aggressive signal. It is a passive one, and that distinction matters more here than anywhere else on Earth. In an ecosystem where calories are scarce and journeys are expensive, predators that chase often starve, while predators that wait endure. And the monkfish has embraced waiting not as a tactic, but as a philosophy of existence. Its body is shaped for stillness, heavy and awkward by shallow water standards, yet perfectly adapted to sit motionless on the seafloor, skin textured and colored to dissolve into the sediment, rocks and broken coral around it, transforming the predator into an absence rather than a presence. The monkfish does not swim through its world. It occupies it, becoming a part of the terrain rather than a visitor passing through. And this choice defines everything about its biology. Its muscles are powerful but rarely used. Its fins capable of movement, but optimized for subtle repositioning rather than sustained propulsion. And its metabolism tuned for conservation rather than bursts of athleticism. In the deep sea, where meals may arrive days or weeks apart, burning energy without certainty is equivalent to self-sabotage. And so the monkfish waits with a patience that borders on geological. Its heart beats slowly, its respiration remains minimal, and its sensory systems stay alert without drawing attention, scanning vibrations, pressure shifts, and faint chemical trails that hint at life moving through the water column above. What makes the lure such a devastating lie is not merely that it looks edible, but that it exploits a fundamental weakness shared by nearly all animals, including humans: curiosity driven by scarcity. In an environment where food is rare, anything that resembles nourishment becomes disproportionately valuable, and prey species cannot afford to ignore potential opportunities, even when risk is implied. The monkfish's lure capitalizes on this imbalance, presenting itself not as a threat or challenge, but as an unexpected gift. Something that should not be there but might be worth investigating precisely because of that improbability. Small fish approach cautiously at first, circling, hovering just outside the invisible boundary where survival still feels possible, their lateral lines sensing subtle disturbances in the water, their eyes struggling to resolve shapes in the dim light, their instincts pulled in opposing directions by hunger and fear. The monkfish does nothing to hurry them, because urgency would betray intention, and intention would collapse the illusion. Instead, it allows the prey to close the distance on its own terms, reinforcing the lie with silence and stillness. The longer the prey hesitates without consequence, the safer the approach feels, and this is where the scam becomes lethal, because the monkfish has designed its entire feeding strategy around the elimination of reaction time. When the mouth opens, it does not open in a way that resembles feeding as most animals understand it. It detonates. The jaws snap apart with such speed that water itself is pulled inward, creating a vacuum that drags the prey into the oral cavity before the nervous system has time to register danger, let alone command muscles to escape. There is no chase, no struggle, no dramatic pursuit through open water. Only a sudden absence, where a living animal existed a fraction of a second earlier. This trapdoor mechanism is one of the most efficient feeding systems in the ocean, not because it is violent, but because it is final. The monkfish's mouth is disproportionately large relative to its body, lined with inward-pointing teeth that prevent escape once the prey crosses the threshold, and its jaw structure allows it to consume animals nearly its own size, a necessity in an environment where passing up a meal could mean waiting an unacceptably long time for the next opportunity. This ability to capitalize fully on rare encounters defines deep-sea predation, and the monkfish represents one of its purest expressions. A predator that does not rely on endurance, speed, or repeated attempts, but on absolute certainty when the moment arrives. The physics of this feeding event reveal just how specialized the monkfish has become, because opening the mouth so rapidly requires not only muscular power, but precise timing and structural reinforcement to prevent self-injury under immense pressure. The bones of the skull are adapted to withstand both the mechanical stress of explosive opening and the surrounding water pressure at depth, while the muscles responsible for jaw movement are arranged to deliver maximum force over minimal distance. This design prioritizes speed over strength in the conventional sense, because the goal is not to overpower prey physically, but to erase the window in which escape is possible. Reaction time, the tiny interval between stimulus and response, becomes irrelevant when the event itself unfolds faster than perception can keep up. This is where the monkfish's strategy reveals a deeper truth about evolution in extreme environments. Success does not belong to the most aggressive or dominant, but to the most economical. By waiting rather than hunting, the monkfish reduces its exposure to predators, conserves energy, and minimizes the risk of injury, all while maintaining a feeding efficiency that rivals far more active hunters. Its skin often hosts symbiotic microorganisms that further enhance camouflage, breaking up outlines and absorbing faint light, while its coloration matches the surrounding substrate so precisely that even experienced observers struggle to detect it until the lure gives it away. In this way, the monkfish becomes a paradox, a predator whose most visible feature is not its body, but a lie extending outward from it. The deep sea amplifies the effectiveness of this deception because light behaves differently at depth, scattering, dimming, and ultimately vanishing, leaving animals reliant on limited visual cues and heightened sensitivity to movement and vibration. The monkfish's lure exploits these constraints perfectly, providing just enough visual stimulus to trigger investigation without offering sufficient context to identify the danger attached to it. This is not mimicry in the traditional sense of copying a specific prey item, but rather an abstraction of edibility itself, a symbol of food, rather than a realistic imitation. And that abstraction is what makes it universally effective across multiple prey species. As the monkfish feeds and then returns to stillness, digestion becomes another exercise in efficiency, with a stomach capable of expanding to accommodate large meals and metabolic processes, adapted to extract maximum energy over extended periods. After feeding, it may not need to hunt again for a long time, allowing it to remain embedded in the seafloor, conserving energy while the deep sea continues its slow, indifferent churn around it. During these intervals, the monkfish becomes less an animal and more a geological feature, a living ambush point that reshapes the behavior of the ecosystem around it by its mere presence, even when unseen. Prey species that survive encounters with monkfish learn to treat drifting shapes with suspicion, altering movement patterns and feeding behaviors in subtle ways that ripple outward through the food web. In this sense, the monkfish influences not only the individuals it consumes, but the collective strategies of the community, enforcing a rule that curiosity must always be tempered by caution. This ecological pressure selects for sharper senses, quicker pattern recognition, and more conservative foraging strategies, demonstrating how a single predatory adaptation can shape the evolutionary trajectory of multiple species over time. Yet for all its success, the monkfish is not a monster or anomaly, but a product of the same selective forces that govern all life, refined to an extreme because the deep sea demands extremes. Where sunlight disappears and productivity collapses, survival belongs to those who can turn patience into a weapon and deception into nourishment. The monkfish does not chase, does not roar, does not announce itself, and does not waste effort asserting dominance. because dominance here is meaningless without efficiency. Instead, it waits, offering food that is not food, extending curiosity like a hand, and then closing the door behind it. In the end, this makes the monkfish one of the ocean's most successful predators, not because it kills often, but because it almost never fails when it does. Its scam works because it aligns perfectly with the constraints of its environment, converting scarcity into leverage and stillness into advantage, and reminding us that in the natural world, the deadliest strategies are often the quietest ones. Food pretending to be food is not merely a trick. It is a philosophy honed by millions of years in darkness, where honesty starves and lies endure. The discomfort begins the moment you try to decide where the sea urchin's face is supposed to be, because nothing about its body offers the familiar landmarks that usually allow the brain to relax into recognition. There are no eyes to meet, no mouth opening and closing in a readable rhythm, no head that clearly leads the rest of the animal through space, only a rigid sphere armored in spines that radiate outward like a warning rather than an invitation, moving slowly across rock as if pulled by gravity itself instead of muscle or intention. On a reef or along a kelp-covered coastline, the sea urchin does not announce itself through motion or sound, yet its presence is deeply felt, because it represents a kind of biological pressure that is not interested in speed, drama, or confrontation, only in contact, persistence, and time. The sea urchin inhabits an ecological niche that rewards patience to an almost unsettling degree, because it survives not by chasing food or overpowering prey, but by grinding the environment itself into nourishment. Its body plan reflects this philosophy completely, with a dense, calcareous shell called a test that protects its internal organs like a bunker, and hundreds of spines that serve both as defense and as crude locomotor tools, levering the animal forward millimeter by millimeter. Beneath this armored dome, hidden from casual view and rarely seen unless the animal is overturned or dissected, lies the structure that defines the sea urchin's role in the ecosystem. A mouth so alien in both appearance and function that it feels more mechanical than biological. A five-toothed apparatus known as Aristotle's lantern. Aristotle's lantern is not a jaw in the conventional sense because it does not snap, slice, or tear, and it certainly does not deliver a killing bite, instead operating as a self-sharpening grinding machine built to scrape, rasp, and pulverize whatever the urchin can press itself against. The lantern consists of 5 interlocking teeth made of calcite, each reinforced with magnesium to increase hardness, arranged in a radial symmetry that mirrors the animal's overall body plan, and powered by a complex arrangement of muscles that allow the teeth to extend, retract, and grind in coordinated motion. As the urchin moves across rock, coral rubble, or kelp holdfasts, the lantern presses downward, applying steady force rather than sudden impact, converting hard biological surfaces into edible particles through friction and repetition. Watching a sea urchin feed up close reveals just how different this process is from predation, as most people imagine it, because there is no moment of attack, no sudden escalation, and no visible struggle. Only the quiet, relentless, soundless labor of teeth scraping against stone, algae, and calcified surfaces. The lantern wears down as it works, but this is not a flaw. It is a feature, because the teeth grow continuously, replacing worn surfaces with fresh, grinding edges in a slow, perpetual cycle that mirrors the animal's feeding strategy. This is mining rather than hunting, extraction rather than capture, and the sea urchin is exquisitely adapted to it, capable of processing materials that would be nutritionally useless or physically inaccessible to most other animals. The sensory world of the sea urchin adds another layer of unease, because it navigates its environment without eyes, ears, or a centralized brain, relying instead on a distributed nervous system and light-sensitive cells embedded directly into its skin. These photoreceptive cells do not form images, but they allow the animal to detect changes in light intensity, enabling it to respond to shadows cast by predators or to orient itself toward darker crevices and shelter. Combined with chemoreceptors that detect dissolved substances in the water and mechanoreceptors that sense vibration and pressure, the sea urchin experiences its world as a shifting gradient of touch, chemistry, and light, rather than as a visual landscape, reinforcing the sense that it operates on a fundamentally different perceptual plane. Movement for the sea urchin is slow but deliberate, driven not only by spines, but by hundreds of tiny tube feet extending from pores in the shell, each ending in a suction cup capable of gripping rock with surprising strength. These tube feet are part of the water vascular system, a hydraulic network unique to echinoderms that uses seawater pressure to extend and retract appendages, allowing the urchin to cling to surfaces even in heavy surge and wave action. This system grants the animal an almost stubborn persistence, enabling it to continue feeding and moving in conditions that would dislodge less securely anchored grazers, further amplifying its impact on the environment. When sea urchin populations remain balanced within their ecosystems, their grazing plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy reefs and kelp forests, preventing fast-growing algae from smothering corals or monopolizing space. In moderation, this slow consumption creates patchiness, opening up surfaces for new organisms to settle and increasing overall biodiversity. However, the same adaptations that make the sea urchin an effective regulator also allow it to become a destructive force when predators are removed or environmental conditions shift in its favor. In many coastal systems, predators such as sea otters, large fish, and lobsters keep urchin numbers in check, creating a dynamic equilibrium where grazing pressure remains sustainable. When these predators decline due to overfishing, habitat loss, or human interference, sea urchin populations can explode, transforming vibrant kelp forests into what ecologists call barren zones, landscapes stripped down to bare rock, dominated almost exclusively by spines and tests. In these barrens, the sea urchins continue their slow mining operation unchecked, consuming juvenile kelp as soon as it attempts to establish, locking the ecosystem into a degraded state that can persist for decades. The transformation from forest to barren does not happen dramatically or overnight, which is part of what makes it so insidious. Because there is no single moment of collapse, only the gradual disappearance of vertical structure, shade, and complexity, as kelp is reduced to stubble and then erased entirely. With the loss of kelp comes the loss of habitat for fish, invertebrates, and countless other species that depend on the forest for shelter and food, cascading through the food web and simplifying what was once a three-dimensional ecosystem into a flattened, biologically impoverished seascape. At the center of this transformation sits the sea urchin, still feeding in the same way it always has, indifferent to the broader consequences of its success. This indifference is not cruelty or malice, but a reminder that ecological impact does not require intention, only effectiveness. And the sea urchin is devastatingly effective at what it does. Its armor protects it from many would-be predators. Its spines deter handling and consumption, and its ability to survive on low-quality food allows it to persist even when resources become scarce. Some species can slow their metabolism dramatically, entering a state of near-starvation survival, where they continue to graze minimally while waiting for conditions to improve, effectively outlasting competitors and reinforcing their dominance in barren environments. From an evolutionary perspective, the sea urchin represents a lineage that has prioritized durability over specialization, maintaining a body plan that has changed relatively little over hundreds of millions of years because it works across a wide range of conditions. Its lack of a centralized brain does not limit its success. Instead, the distributed nervous system allows local responses that are sufficient for a lifestyle built around contact and persistence. Its feeding apparatus does not need precision or speed, only constant pressure. And its sensory systems do not need to resolve detail, only gradients and changes. The unease provoked by the sea urchin comes from recognizing how alien yet effective this strategy is, because it strips away many of the traits humans instinctively associate with agency and replaces them with something closer to inevitability. The sea urchin does not stalk, ambush, or react emotionally to its surroundings. It advances, attaches, grinds, and moves on, repeating the cycle as long as energy input exceeds output. In doing so, it reshapes environments not through explosive events, but through cumulative erosion, a biological equivalent of tectonic pressure applied grain by grain. Standing above a reef, transformed into an urchin barren, or diving through the remains of a kelp forest reduced to skeletal holdfasts, the absence of drama is what feels most disturbing, because there is no obvious villain, no single act of destruction to point to, only the quiet outcome of a system pushed out of balance. The sea urchin continues to eat in the same way it always has. It's Aristotle's lantern-scraping rock, algae, and anything edible from the surface, indifferent to whether the landscape supports abundance or emptiness. This is not a predator that kills in moments, nor a scavenger that waits for death, but an organism that applies steady force to the living fabric of its environment until that fabric thins, frays, or disappears altogether. It does not bite, it mines. It does not overwhelm, it persists. And in that persistence lies both its ecological importance and its capacity for destruction, a reminder that some of the most powerful forces in nature operate not through spectacle, but through relentless grinding pressure that never stops long enough to be noticed until the damage is already done. The descent begins long before the surface world understands what has been surrendered, because the moment a sperm whale angles its massive body downward, it commits to a mission where light, warmth, and margin for error collapse together into a narrow band of tolerances, governed by physics rather than instinct. The open ocean above still carries color and motion, but beneath the whale, the water thickens into darkness, pressure stacks upon pressure, and time becomes a resource that cannot be replenished until the animal returns to air. This is not a casual dive and not a foraging excursion driven by abundance, but a deliberate plunge into a realm where feeding is costly, prey is dangerous, and survival depends on how efficiently a body can function while being slowly deprived of oxygen. At depth, the sperm whale is no longer the largest predator in a familiar sense, because size here does not translate into dominance so much as responsibility, a requirement to manage immense mass under crushing pressure while conserving every possible unit of energy. The whale's lungs collapse early in the dive, expelling air and preventing nitrogen absorption that would otherwise cause catastrophic injury on ascent. And oxygen is instead carried primarily in the blood and muscle, bound to hemoglobin and myoglobin at concentrations that far exceed those of most mammals. This internal storage allows the whale to operate for extended periods without breathing, but it also imposes a strict budget, because once oxygen reserves are committed, there is no replenishment until the animal returns to the surface. Every movement, every muscle contraction, and every acceleration draws from a finite pool, turning the dive into a controlled expenditure rather than an open-ended search. The environment into which the sperm whale descends is hostile not because it is violent, but because it is indifferent, offering no visual cues, no thermal comfort, and no spatial reference points beyond gradients of pressure and sound. Temperatures drop sharply as sunlight disappears, and water becomes cold enough to sap heat from exposed tissue. Yet the whale's thick blubber and massive size slow heat loss, creating a thermal inertia that allows it to function where smaller animals would rapidly succumb. This insulation is not merely protection from cold, but a stabilizing force that preserves metabolic efficiency during long periods of low activity, interspersed with brief, intense encounters. The prey that draws the sperm whale into this darkness is not easy food, because large squid are formidable animals in their own right, equipped with muscular mantles for rapid propulsion, powerful tentacles lined with suction cups or hooks, and beaks capable of inflicting serious injury. These squid inhabit depths where few predators can follow, relying on the darkness and pressure as shields, yet the sperm whale has evolved specifically to breach this sanctuary. Feeding here is not a matter of ambush or surprise in the visual sense, but of persistence and control, wearing prey down in an environment where escape routes are limited by physiology rather than terrain. Vision is nearly useless at these depths, and the whale does not waste energy attempting to see what cannot be illuminated, instead relying on sound as its primary interface with the environment. The sperm whale's head, enormous even by whale standards, houses a complex acoustic system dominated by the spermaceti organ, a structure filled with waxy lipids that play a critical role in sound production and focusing. Through powerful clicks generated deep within this organ, the whale sends pulses of sound into the surrounding water, listening for echoes that reveal the presence, size, and movement of prey. These clicks are among the loudest biological sounds produced by any animal, yet they are finely controlled, adjusted in rate and intensity as the whale closes in on a target. To human ears, these acoustic signals are crude and overwhelming, but to the whale they form a detailed sensory map, allowing it to track squid that remain completely invisible. The echoes return with subtle differences in timing and frequency that convey shape and motion, enabling the whale to anticipate escape attempts and adjust approach without visual confirmation. This sensory dominance of sound over sight represents a fundamental shift in how feeding operates, because the hunt unfolds through interpretation of reflections rather than direct observation, demanding a brain capable of processing rapid acoustic feedback under extreme physiological stress. As the whale approaches prey, the challenge becomes one of endurance rather than capture speed, because squid are capable of rapid bursts of movement that can outpace even a whale over short distances. The whale does not chase in a prolonged sprint, because doing so would exhaust oxygen reserves prematurely, instead maintaining steady pursuit, forcing the squid to expend energy repeatedly while the whale relies on its larger oxygen stores and slower, more efficient swimming. Over time, the squid's escape responses weaken, its movements become less coordinated, and control shifts to the whale, not through dominance of speed, but through superior physiological budgeting. When contact occurs, it is often violent and chaotic, because the squid does not submit easily, lashing out with tentacles that can leave scars still visible on whale skin decades later. These scars, circular marks left by suction cups, are not trophies, but records of repeated risk, evidence that feeding at depth carries real danger even for the largest predator on Earth. The whale counters this resistance not with delicate manipulation, but with brute containment, engulfing prey in its massive jaws and relying on size and inertia to overwhelm struggling bodies. Teeth play a limited role in processing, serving more to grip than to tear, because much of the prey is swallowed whole or in large sections. The act of feeding does not end the mission, because once prey is secured, the whale must still manage ascent, a process that demands careful pacing to avoid decompression stress and metabolic collapse. Oxygen reserves are often at their lowest after feeding, making the return journey as critical as the hunt itself. The whale ascends gradually, heart rate increasing as pressure decreases and lungs re-expand, preparing the body for the sudden reintroduction of air at the surface. This transition between worlds is one of the most physiologically complex feats performed by any mammal, requiring precise coordination of circulation, respiration, and muscle function. The enormous head that defines the sperm whale's silhouette is often misunderstood as an awkward excess, yet it is central to every aspect of this deep water lifestyle. Beyond housing the acoustic system, the head contributes to buoyancy control and momentum management during dives, acting as both sensory hub and physical stabilizer. Its mass helps counteract positive buoyancy during descent and provides inertia that smooths movement through dense water, reducing the energetic cost of directional changes. This design prioritizes function over streamlining, reflecting a life shaped by depth rather than surface travel. Ecologically, the sperm whale occupies a role that connects the deep ocean to the surface world, because the nutrients it consumes at depth are eventually returned to upper layers through waste products released near the surface. This vertical transfer contributes to nutrient cycling, supporting plankton growth that forms the base of marine food webs. In this way, the whale's feeding behavior influences ecosystems far beyond the darkness it inhabits, linking deep water productivity to surface abundance through a process that operates quietly and continuously. The cost of this feeding strategy is high because every dive carries risk, and success depends on precise timing, sensory accuracy, and physiological resilience. Failed hunts waste oxygen without return, forcing the whale to surface with depleted reserves and no nutritional gain, a loss that must be offset through future success. This pressure favors experience and learning, with older whales often displaying greater efficiency in prey capture and dive management, suggesting that feeding at depth is not purely instinctive but refined over time through practice and adaptation. Despite their size, sperm whales are not immune to environmental change, because alterations in deep water temperature, oxygen levels, or prey distribution can disrupt the delicate balance that makes their feeding possible. Shifts in squid populations ripple upward, affecting whale health and reproduction, underscoring the vulnerability of even the largest predators to changes in the smallest parameters. Feeding at the edge of the habitable world means living close to thresholds where minor disruptions can have outsized consequences. The experience of a deep dive, when considered in its entirety, reveals feeding as an act of negotiation with physics rather than dominance over prey. Pressure constrains movement, oxygen limits time, and darkness erases visual certainty, leaving sound, endurance, and control as the primary tools. The sperm whale succeeds not because it is invulnerable, but because it has aligned its anatomy, physiology, and behavior with these constraints, accepting cost in exchange for access to resources unavailable to others. As the whale finally breaks the surface, exhaling explosively and replenishing oxygen stores, the surface world resumes with startling abruptness, light returning, temperature rising, and gravity easing its grip. The feeding event itself may have lasted minutes or longer, yet it unfolded in a realm that remains permanently inaccessible to human observers without machines. What remains visible are scars, surfacings, and migrations. But the true drama of sperm whale feeding takes place beyond reach, in darkness where sound replaces sight, and survival depends on managing forces that operate at the very limits of biological possibility. In the end, this is feeding stripped of comfort and spectacle, reduced to endurance against pressure, time, and energy, a reminder that the most extreme forms of predation do not occur in scenes of visible violence, but in silent negotiations with the environment itself. The sperm whale hunts where physics dictates the rules, not instinct alone, and every successful meal represents a victory not just over prey, but over the fundamental constraints of oxygen, pressure, and darkness. This is feeding at the edge of physics, where life persists not by defying limits, but by understanding them completely. The reef barely registers the presence of a mantis shrimp until something breaks, and that delayed awareness is part of what makes this animal so unsettling, because the violence it delivers is not preceded by pursuit, warning, or escalation, but by stillness and precision inside a world already crowded with predators. Coral reefs are often framed as places of color and abundance, yet beneath that surface lies an economy built around armor, because survival here favors shells, plates, and hardened exteriors that can resist teeth, jaws, and crushing force. Most predators work around this problem by targeting soft-bodied prey or exploiting moments of weakness. But the mantis shrimp takes a more direct approach, evolving not to bypass armor, but to destroy it outright with a tool so specialized that it blurs the line between biology and engineering. The mantis shrimp's defining feature is its raptorial appendage, a pair of modified forelimbs folded beneath the head like compacted machinery waiting to be released. These limbs are not claws in the conventional sense, nor are they jaws or pincers, but spring-loaded weapons built around an elastic energy storage system that allows the shrimp to deliver force far beyond what its small size would suggest. Muscles slowly load energy into a saddle-shaped structure made of mineralized tissue, locking it in place until a latch mechanism releases, converting stored potential energy into explosive motion in a fraction of a second. The result is a strike so fast that water itself cannot move out of the way in time, creating shock waves that contribute to the impact and amplify damage. From the perspective of prey, the encounter is effectively over before it begins, because the strike does not function as a test of endurance or resistance, but as a decisive mechanical event. Snails, crabs, and bivalves rely on shells to deter predators, investing energy into thickness and hardness rather than speed. And this strategy works against most reef hunters that lack the tools to overcome such defenses. The mantis shrimp renders this investment irrelevant because its hammer does not pry or crush slowly, but shatters shells with a single, precisely aimed blow, converting protective structures into debris in an instant. This capability grants the mantis shrimp access to a food resource that is abundant, yet underutilized, because armored prey dominate reef substrates, carpeting rocks and crevices with locked calories that most predators cannot access efficiently. By evolving a strike capable of breaking these defenses, the mantis shrimp occupies a niche defined not by speed or stealth, but by exclusivity. Feeding on prey others must ignore. This specialization reduces competition and stabilizes food availability, allowing the shrimp to focus on territory control rather than roaming in search of opportunity. The feeding advantage of the raptorial strike lies not only in power, but in reliability, because the ability to disable prey instantly minimizes risk and energy expenditure. A prolonged struggle exposes small predators to injury, counterattack, and interference from larger animals, but the mantis shrimp's approach compresses the entire interaction into a single moment. One hit is usually sufficient to crack, stun, or outright kill prey, ensuring that the fight does not escalate or attract attention. This efficiency is critical for an animal that operates close to the substrate, where visibility is limited and danger can arrive from multiple directions without warning. The strike itself is guided by sensory input that reflects another layer of specialization, because mantis shrimp possess some of the most complex visual systems known in the animal kingdom. Their eyes are capable of detecting polarized light and multiple wavelength bands, allowing them to distinguish subtle differences in surface texture and material composition. While this visual complexity does not translate into the kind of image resolution humans experience, it provides rapid classification of objects, enabling the shrimp to identify prey type, orientation, and vulnerability almost instantly. This supports precise targeting, ensuring that strikes land where they will do the most damage. Despite the raw power of its weapon, the mantis shrimp does not roam the reef indiscriminately, because feeding success depends as much on location as on capability. Many species construct and maintain burrows within coral rubble, sand, or rock, investing significant effort into excavation and reinforcement. These burrows serve as both shelter and food vaults, positioned strategically near concentrations of shell-bearing prey. Good territory is not simply a place to hide, but a supply chain, and mantis shrimp defend these locations aggressively because losing access means losing reliable nutrition. Territorial defense among mantis shrimp is intense and often ritualized, with individuals engaging in displays, strikes, and posturing to establish dominance without necessarily escalating to lethal conflict. This behavior reflects the high value of territory, because the shrimp's feeding strategy depends on repeated access to nearby prey rather than long-distance foraging. A well-positioned burrow allows the mantis shrimp to make short, efficient hunting excursions, returning quickly to safety with food, reducing exposure to predators and maximizing the payoff of its specialized tool. The risk inherent in this strategy is not trivial, because the same force that shatters shells must be controlled precisely to avoid self-injury. The mantis shrimp's appendage is reinforced with layered structures that distribute stress and resist fracture, allowing it to withstand repeated impacts without catastrophic failure. This durability is essential because damage to the raptorial limb would compromise feeding ability entirely, turning a highly specialized predator into a vulnerable animal unable to access its primary food source. The evolution of such a system required not just power, but resilience, a balance achieved through microstructural adaptations that engineers study for inspiration. When a mantis shrimp strikes prey, the outcome is rarely ambiguous, because the combination of mechanical force and shockwave often disables the animal instantly. Crabs may be stunned or killed outright. Snails may have their shells fractured beyond repair, and bivalves may be forced open by structural failure rather than prying. This rapid resolution minimizes suffering and risk, but it also underscores the shrimp's role as a predator that does not negotiate with defenses, but eliminates them as a category. Ecologically, this feeding strategy has ripple effects throughout reef communities because it regulates populations of armored invertebrates that might otherwise dominate space and resources. By selectively removing individuals capable of resisting other predators, mantis shrimp contribute to maintaining balance within benthic ecosystems, preventing monopolization of substrate by a few hardy species. This influence extends beyond direct predation, shaping the distribution and behavior of prey species that may avoid areas heavily occupied by mantis shrimp, altering patterns of settlement and growth. The presence of mantis shrimp also affects the behavior of other predators, because the sound of a strike carries through the reef, acting as an auditory signal of activity. Some predators may be drawn to the disturbance, while others may avoid it, recognizing the mantis shrimp as a competitor capable of inflicting damage even on animals larger than itself. This acoustic footprint adds another dimension to the shrimp's ecological role, extending its influence beyond direct encounters. Despite their fearsome capabilities, mantis shrimp are not indiscriminate killers, and their feeding behavior reflects calculated decision-making rather than constant aggression. They do not strike every potential prey item, instead assessing size, orientation, and accessibility before committing to an attack. This selectivity conserves energy and reduces wear on the raptorial limbs, reinforcing the importance of precision over frequency. Each strike represents a deliberate investment, not an impulsive act. The combination of territoriality, specialized feeding, and rapid resolution creates a life strategy built around control rather than expansion. The mantis shrimp does not need to range widely or dominate large areas, only to secure and defend a small zone rich in locked food. Within this zone, it operates with near impunity, breaking open prey that others cannot touch and retreating to safety before interference occurs. This compact dominance is what allows such a small animal to exert outsized influence within the reef. The tiny monster reputation of the mantis shrimp is earned not through ferocity or unpredictability, but through functional honesty, because it does exactly what it is built to do with minimal embellishment. There is no chase, no prolonged struggle, no spectacle beyond the brief moment of impact, after which the outcome is decided. This stark efficiency challenges assumptions about size and power, demonstrating that mechanical advantage and specialization can outweigh mass and aggression. From an evolutionary standpoint, the mantis shrimp represents an extreme solution to a common problem: access to protected food, refined through millions of years of selection into a tool that operates at the edge of biological possibility. Its raptorial strike is not a generalist adaptation, but a key, unlocking resources that would otherwise remain sealed. And this exclusivity has shaped every aspect of its behavior, from territorial defense to sensory processing. As the mantis shrimp drags shattered prey back to its burrow, the reef absorbs the disturbance and resumes its rhythms, the evidence of the encounter reduced to fragments and absence. The shell that once protected a living organism lies broken, its contents consumed, and the space it occupied becomes available for others. This quiet aftermath is the true signature of the mantis shrimp's feeding strategy: decisive, localized, and transformative. In the end, the mantis shrimp does not eat by overpowering prey through size or endurance, but by carrying the exact tool required to access food that remains locked to everyone else. It does not waste time negotiating defenses or exploiting weakness, because its weapon renders those strategies unnecessary. This is feeding reduced to mechanics, where the outcome is determined by design rather than chance, and where success belongs to the animal that brings the right key to the right lock. It eats locked food by carrying the key. The reef floor appears calm when viewed from above, a mosaic of stone, sand, and slow-moving life where urgency seems out of place. Yet this stillness hides one of the most unsettling feeding strategies in the ocean. Because here, predation does not announce itself through speed, teeth, or violence, but through patience so complete that resistance becomes meaningless over time. Starfish, often dismissed as decorative or harmless, operate under a logic that feels alien precisely because it rejects the drama most predators rely on, replacing pursuit with pressure and biting with a process that unfolds outside the body. In this ecosystem, where shells, armor, and tight closures are meant to guarantee safety, the starfish introduces a rule that many prey never evolve to face. Survival is not decided by who strikes first, but by who can keep going the longest. A starfish does not look like a hunter, and that misinterpretation is central to its success, because its body plan communicates slowness, exposure, and vulnerability rather than threat. With no head, no visible jaws, and no obvious weapons, the starfish moves across the substrate using hundreds of tiny tube feet, each extending and contracting through hydraulic pressure generated by its internal water vascular system. These tube feet are not designed for speed, but for grip, anchoring the animal securely to rock, shell, or reef while distributing force across a wide surface area. This distributed contact allows the starfish to apply steady pressure without tiring, turning the environment itself into part of its feeding apparatus. The prey most vulnerable to this strategy are bivalves, organisms that evolved to survive by closing tightly and waiting out danger, trusting that predators would eventually give up when confronted with an immovable barrier. Clams, mussels, and oysters invest heavily in this defense, using powerful adductor muscles to clamp their shells shut with remarkable force, capable of resisting prying jaws and crushing bites. Against fast predators, this strategy works, because bursts of force are difficult to sustain, and time favors the prey. Against a starfish, however, time becomes the weapon of the attacker. When a starfish encounters a bivalve, the interaction begins without urgency or aggression, as the starfish positions itself over the shell, spreading its arms to maximize contact and stabilize its grip. Tube feet attach to both halves of the shell, forming a living brace that resists any attempt by the bivalve to dislodge the predator. Rather than attempting to crack or break the shell, the starfish applies continuous, low-level force, pulling steadily in opposite directions while maintaining its own attachment to the substrate. This force is not impressive in the moment, but it is relentless, and because the starfish does not fatigue in the same way a muscle-driven animal does, it can maintain this tension for hours if necessary. Inside the bivalve, the adductor muscle works continuously to keep the shell closed, consuming energy with every second of resistance. Unlike the starfish, which can afford to wait, the bivalve must actively maintain closure, burning stored reserves to counter the pull. Over time, this imbalance becomes decisive as the bivalve's muscle weakens slightly, allowing a gap so small it would be meaningless to most predators, yet sufficient for the starfish's true feeding mechanism to engage. This is the moment where the encounter shifts from pressure to something far stranger. Starfish do not eat by bringing food into their bodies in the conventional sense, because they lack the jaws and internal processing structures required to dismantle prey mechanically. Instead, many species possess a remarkable ability to evert their stomach, pushing it out through the mouth and into the body cavity of the prey itself. When the shell gap appears, the starfish extends its stomach into the opening, pressing soft tissue directly against the living prey. Digestive enzymes are released externally, beginning the process of breaking down tissues while the bivalve is still alive, unable to close fully or escape. This external digestion is unsettling not because it is violent, but because it is gradual and inescapable, transforming the prey's own body into a digestion chamber. The starfish does not need to kill first and eat later. The act of digestion is the killing process. As tissues liquefy, nutrients are absorbed directly through the stomach wall, reducing the prey from the inside out while the shell remains largely intact. Once digestion is complete, the stomach retracts, leaving behind an empty shell that appears untouched to the casual observer, a quiet record of a process that unfolded entirely out of sight. The effectiveness of this strategy lies in its compatibility with the starfish's physiology, because external digestion eliminates the need for large internal stomach capacity or complex chewing mechanisms. By outsourcing digestion to the environment and the prey itself, the starfish can consume organisms larger than its mouth opening would otherwise allow, expanding its dietary options without increasing structural complexity. This feeding mode also reduces the need for speed, because success depends on maintaining contact rather than securing a rapid kill. From an evolutionary perspective, this represents a solution to the problem of armored prey that bypasses mechanical escalation entirely. Instead of evolving stronger jaws or thicker teeth, the starfish evolved a way to ignore armor altogether, focusing on the biological limits of muscle endurance rather than shell integrity. This approach is particularly effective in environments where bivalves are abundant and competition from faster predators is limited, allowing starfish to exploit a food source that others struggle to access reliably. The slow pace of starfish feeding often leads to the misconception that these animals are passive or harmless, yet this slowness is precisely what makes them dangerous in ecological terms, because it allows them to exert sustained pressure on prey populations without dramatic events to trigger immediate response. In systems where starfish populations increase unchecked, their feeding can dramatically reduce bivalve numbers, altering substrate composition, water filtration rates, and nutrient cycling. Bivalves play critical roles in many ecosystems, filtering water and stabilizing sediments, and their removal can ripple outward, affecting species far removed from the original predator-prey interaction. Starfish themselves are well suited to this slow predation lifestyle, with metabolic rates that allow extended periods of low activity, punctuated by feeding events that unfold over hours or days. Their decentralized nervous systems do not prioritize rapid decision-making or reflexive action, but instead coordinate gradual movements and sustained attachment, aligning behavior with the demands of their feeding strategy. Sensory input is distributed across the body surface, allowing the starfish to detect chemical cues and contact without relying on centralized perception, further reinforcing its capacity to operate effectively without urgency. The arms of a starfish function not as weapons, but as anchors and levers, each capable of independent movement yet coordinated through the water vascular system. This allows the animal to adjust grip and pressure dynamically, responding to subtle changes in prey resistance without releasing contact. If one tube foot loses adhesion, others compensate, maintaining overall tension and preventing escape. This redundancy ensures that the feeding process, once begun, is difficult to interrupt, even if conditions change. The inevitability of starfish predation becomes especially apparent when considering the lack of viable escape options for prey once contact is established. A bivalve cannot outrun a starfish, cannot dislodge it easily, and cannot simply wait indefinitely, because waiting consumes energy that the starfish is not expending at the same rate. This asymmetry turns time into a weapon, favoring the predator regardless of how long the encounter lasts. In this context, speed is irrelevant, and defense strategies based on endurance fail. Beyond bivalves, some starfish species extend this feeding strategy to other slow or sessile organisms, including corals, sponges, and barnacles, using similar techniques of external digestion and sustained pressure. This flexibility allows starfish to occupy diverse niches across different habitats, from shallow reefs to deeper benthic zones, adapting feeding behavior to available resources without changing the underlying logic of their approach. Wherever prey relies on stillness and closure for defense, starfish find opportunity. The ecological consequences of this feeding mode are particularly evident in systems where starfish populations experience rapid growth, often due to changes in predator abundance or environmental conditions. In such cases, starfish can become dominant consumers, reshaping communities through cumulative removal rather than catastrophic events. This slow transformation can go unnoticed until its effects become pronounced, highlighting how predation does not need to be dramatic to be impactful. Despite their unsettling feeding behavior, starfish are not anomalies or aberrations, but products of an evolutionary pathway that prioritized persistence over speed and chemical digestion over mechanical force. Their success demonstrates that predation does not require aggression or intimidation, only alignment between anatomy, physiology, and environmental opportunity. In a world where many animals invest heavily in armor and closure, the starfish reveals a different vulnerability, the inability to sustain resistance indefinitely. As the starfish moves on after feeding, leaving behind an empty shell and no visible disturbance, the reef resumes its quiet rhythms, the absence of the prey blending seamlessly into the background of natural change. Yet the logic of the interaction remains, a reminder that safety is relative, and that some predators do not announce themselves through motion or violence, but through patience. In the end, the starfish embodies a form of predation that challenges instinctive notions of danger, replacing speed with certainty and force with endurance. It does not chase, lunge, or overpower because it does not need to. By applying slow, unyielding pressure and digesting prey from the outside, it ensures that escape is not a question of agility or strength, but of time. And time is on the starfish's side. It does not chase you, it outlasts you. The first mistake people make when watching dolphins feed is focusing on the mouth, because teeth feel familiar and violence feels intuitive. Yet in dolphins, the mouth is almost an afterthought, a delivery opening rather than a processing tool. And the real machinery of feeding sits higher up, invisible, distributed through neural tissue, social coordination, and spatial awareness that turns the ocean itself into a controllable environment. In coastal shallows, open pelagic waters, and along shifting boundaries where depth changes abruptly, dolphins do not hunt as solitary biters or crushers, but as managers of motion, shaping how prey moves, where it can flee, and how long it can resist before being swallowed whole without ceremony. Most dolphins do not chew their food, not because they lack teeth, but because chewing would be inefficient in a medium where prey is mobile and competition is constant. Their teeth are conical and uniform, designed to grip rather than slice or grind, and once a fish is caught, it is typically swallowed headfirst in a single motion, minimizing resistance from fins and spines. This feeding design eliminates handling time, a critical factor in environments where prey schools are dynamic and opportunities vanish quickly. Every second spent manipulating a fish is a second not spent acquiring the next one, and dolphins have evolved to reduce that inefficiency almost entirely. The real work of feeding happens before the prey ever reaches the mouth, during the phase where dolphins convert scattered, fast-moving fish into predictable, dense targets. This conversion relies on speed, but not reckless speed, and on intelligence, but not abstract problem-solving in isolation, rather on applied cognition distributed across individuals operating as a coordinated system. Dolphins rarely rush blindly into prey schools, because doing so causes fish to scatter in all directions, multiplying escape paths and reducing capture efficiency. Instead, they approach strategically, positioning themselves around the school's periphery, adjusting depth, angle, and spacing to influence how the prey reacts. Fish respond to predators through simple rules, tightening formations, changing direction simultaneously, or diving toward perceived safety, and dolphins exploit these rules relentlessly. By applying pressure from specific directions, dolphins can herd prey into tighter balls, compressing hundreds or thousands of individuals into volumes where escape becomes statistically unlikely. This herding does not require physical contact initially. It is driven by movement patterns, acoustic cues, and the psychological pressure of perceived threat. Dolphins understand, at an instinctive and learned level, how fish think collectively, and they shape that thinking to their advantage. Sound plays a central role in this process, not just as a sensory tool, but as a means of control. Dolphins use echolocation clicks to map prey density and movement, creating acoustic images that reveal where the school is thickest and where individuals are attempting to break away. These clicks are not constant. They change in frequency and intensity as dolphins close in, reflecting real-time adjustments based on feedback from the environment. In some cases, dolphins produce bursts of sound that may startle or disorient prey, reinforcing the tightening effect and preventing early escapes. Teamwork amplifies these tactics, because multiple dolphins working together can create barriers that no single individual could maintain alone. In cooperative hunts, dolphins take on roles that shift dynamically, with some individuals driving prey from behind, others blocking lateral escape routes, and still others exploiting openings to capture fish directly. This role flexibility allows the group to adapt to changes in prey behavior and environmental conditions without breaking formation, maintaining pressure until the moment of capture. Such coordination does not rely on rigid signals or hierarchies, but on shared experience and rapid interpretation of movement, a hallmark of social predators with high cognitive capacity. Terrain becomes another tool in the dolphin's feeding arsenal, particularly in coastal environments where depth and structure constrain movement. In shallow bays, estuaries, and near-shore zones, dolphins may herd fish towards sandbars, mudflats, or steep underwater slopes, reducing the three-dimensional space available for escape. Some populations have been observed driving fish into extremely shallow water, where prey strand themselves in panic, while dolphins exploit the chaos at the edge of their own tolerance. These behaviors demonstrate an understanding of physical geography that extends beyond instinct, revealing learned strategies passed through generations. The efficiency of swallowing prey whole is especially evident once herding succeeds, because capture becomes a rapid sequence of lunges rather than prolonged struggles. Dolphins accelerate through dense prey clusters, snapping fish with precise timing and swallowing them immediately, often capturing multiple prey in quick succession. The absence of chewing means there is no need to pause, reposition, or process, allowing dolphins to maintain momentum throughout the feeding event. This efficiency is crucial for sustaining high-energy lifestyles, particularly for animals that must balance feeding with travel, social interaction, and, in some cases, thermoregulation in cooler waters. Physiologically, dolphins are well adapted to this mode of feeding, with flexible necks that allow rapid head movement and strong throat musculature that facilitates swift swallowing. Their digestive systems are optimized to handle whole prey, breaking down fish internally rather than externally, and their metabolism supports bursts of intense activity followed by rapid recovery. Unlike predators that rely on single large kills, dolphins often consume many small fish in succession, spreading risk and ensuring consistent energy intake even when individual prey items offer limited calories. The brain underpins all of this, acting as the central processor that integrates sensory input, social cues, and spatial awareness into coordinated action. Dolphins possess some of the largest and most complex brains among non-human animals, with regions associated with problem-solving, memory, and social behavior particularly well developed. This neural investment is not ornamental, it is functional, enabling dolphins to adjust hunting strategies based on experience, learn new techniques, and adapt to changing prey distributions. In some populations, unique feeding methods emerge that are not seen elsewhere, indicating cultural transmission rather than purely genetic programming. One striking example of this adaptability is the use of mud plumes or sediment clouds to trap fish, a behavior observed in certain coastal dolphin communities. By circling rapidly and stirring up the seabed, dolphins create opaque barriers that confuse prey and limit visual escape routes, effectively turning the environment into a temporary net. Fish driven into these plumes often leap or cluster tightly, making them easy targets for dolphins waiting at the edges. This technique highlights the dolphin's ability to manipulate not just prey, but the physical properties of the environment itself. Despite their intelligence and coordination, dolphins do not waste effort on unnecessary violence, because their feeding strategy prioritizes efficiency over dominance. They do not tear prey apart, crush shells, or engage in prolonged fights, because such actions consume time and energy without increasing intake. By swallowing prey whole, dolphins minimize handling costs and reduce the risk of injury, allowing them to focus on acquisition rather than processing. This approach also reduces competition, because prey items are removed quickly from the system, leaving little opportunity for scavengers or rivals to intervene. Ecologically, dolphins exert significant influence on prey populations through this style of feeding, not by eliminating entire schools, but by shaping their behavior and distribution. The constant threat of coordinated predation encourages fish to adopt tighter schooling patterns, alter migration routes, and adjust feeding times, effects that cascade through the ecosystem. Dolphins, in this sense, act as regulators of motion and behavior, rather than simple consumers, enforcing rules that structure how life moves through the ocean. The efficiency of dolphin feeding also has implications for energy budgets and social structure, because successful hunts support not just individuals, but entire groups, including calves that depend on adults for protection and learning. Cooperative feeding reinforces social bonds and creates shared experiences that strengthen group cohesion, an important factor in species where long-term associations and communication play critical roles. Feeding is not just about calories, but about maintaining the social fabric that makes such strategies possible. It is important to recognize that this intelligence-driven feeding strategy comes with costs, because maintaining a large brain is energetically expensive, and coordination requires constant attention and learning. Dolphins must invest time in social interaction, communication, and practice to sustain their effectiveness, making them vulnerable to disruptions that interfere with these processes. Noise pollution, habitat degradation, and prey depletion can undermine the subtle dynamics that make coordinated feeding work, highlighting the fragility of strategies built on cognition rather than brute force. The contrast between appearance and function becomes clear when observing a feeding event unfold. because there is little visible aggression. No dramatic tearing or blood, only motion, compression, and rapid disappearance of prey. To an untrained eye, it may appear playful or effortless. Yet beneath that surface lies a complex system of decision-making and cooperation operating at high speed. Dolphins do not need to bite hard because they do not give prey the opportunity to resist. In the final accounting, dolphin feeding is a lesson in strategy over strength, demonstrating that success in the ocean does not always belong to the animals with the sharpest teeth or strongest jaws. By reducing prey handling time to nearly zero and maximizing capture efficiency through coordination, dolphins align their biology with the realities of a fluid, competitive environment. The mouth becomes a tool of convenience rather than power, a gateway through which prey passes once the real work is done. As dolphins disperse after a successful hunt, the water returns to its previous state, prey schools reforming at a distance, currents smoothing away evidence of the encounter. What remains is not a carcass or a feeding ground marked by debris, but a pattern of absence and adjustment. Fish moving differently, spacing altered, vigilance heightened. This subtle aftermath reflects the true impact of dolphin predation, not destruction, but reorganization. Dolphins are not biters in the traditional sense, nor are they defined by their teeth or jaws. They are feeding strategists, architects of motion and pressure, using intelligence and cooperation to turn fleeting opportunity into reliable nourishment. In their world, the brain replaces the blade, coordination replaces crushing force, and efficiency replaces spectacle, a reminder that in the ocean, the most effective predators are often the ones that think their prey into submission rather than bite it apart. The presence of a tiger shark changes the meaning of uncertainty in the ocean, because this is not a predator defined by specialization, precision, or ritualized hunting sequences, but by a restless adaptability that treats the seascape as a moving inventory of opportunity. In tropical and subtropical waters, where ecosystems overlap and boundaries blur between reef, open ocean, and coastal shallows, the tiger shark does not commit to a single feeding strategy or prey type, instead patrolling the margins where systems collide and weakness accumulates. This edge-focused existence explains both its success and its unpredictability, because it thrives not by mastering one kind of prey, but by remaining prepared for whatever the environment offers next. Unlike predators whose anatomy locks them into narrow dietary lanes, the tiger shark is built for versatility, with a broad head, powerful jaws, and uniquely shaped teeth that resemble serrated can openers more than slicing blades. These teeth are wide, deeply notched, and reinforced to resist breakage, allowing the shark to bite through bone, shell, cartilage, and dense tissue without requiring perfect alignment or repeated strikes. This design does not favor elegance or speed of kill, but durability and access, enabling the tiger shark to process prey that would damage or frustrate more specialized hunters. From sea turtles and marine mammals to fish, seabirds, and carrion, the tiger shark's mouth is capable of converting almost anything organic into digestible energy. This flexibility extends beyond mechanics into behavior, because tiger sharks do not rely on ambush sites, cooperative tactics, or complex pursuit strategies to secure meals. Instead, they cruise continuously, moving through large territories with steady, energy-efficient swimming, scanning for signs of vulnerability rather than targeting specific prey species. The edges they patrol are not random, but ecologically rich transition zones, reef drop-offs, murky coastal waters, estuary mouths, and pelagic convergence zones where currents concentrate life and mistakes become more frequent. These are places where injured animals drift, exhausted migrants falter, and inexperienced juveniles venture beyond safety, creating a steady trickle of opportunity that rewards patience over precision. Feeding events often begin not with dramatic chases, but with quiet evaluation, as the tiger shark approaches potential prey to assess size, condition, and resistance. This assessment is not visual alone, but informed by a suite of sensory inputs, including smell, vibration, and electrical signals generated by muscle movement. The shark's sensory system allows it to detect struggling or stressed animals from considerable distances, honing in on irregular patterns that indicate vulnerability. This ability to discriminate between strong, alert prey and those already compromised reduces risk and conserves energy, reinforcing a feeding style based on opportunism rather than confrontation. When the tiger shark commits to a bite, it does so decisively, but not always lethally in the immediate sense, because its feeding strategy does not require clean kills or rapid incapacitation. A single powerful bite can remove large portions of tissue, disable mobility, or fatally wound prey without requiring prolonged engagement. In some cases, the shark may withdraw after the initial bite, allowing prey to weaken further before returning, a behavior that reflects efficiency rather than cruelty. This approach minimizes exposure to counterattack and reduces the likelihood of injury, a critical consideration for a predator whose success depends on long-term survival rather than frequent high-risk encounters. The reputation of tiger sharks as indiscriminate feeders or ocean garbage disposals arises from this broad diet. But this characterization misses the underlying logic that makes such behavior adaptive rather than random. Consuming a wide range of food sources allows tiger sharks to persist through fluctuations in prey availability, seasonal changes, and environmental disturbances that might starve more specialized predators. Carrion, discarded material, and non-traditional prey items represent calories that others ignore, and while not always nutritionally ideal, they provide energy that sustains the shark until higher quality prey becomes available again. This adaptability can stabilize ecosystems by removing dead or dying animals, reducing disease spread, and preventing the accumulation of organic waste, functions that support overall ecosystem health. At the same time, in systems where tiger shark populations increase significantly, their broad feeding can destabilize communities by exerting pressure across multiple trophic levels simultaneously. By consuming a wide variety of species, tiger sharks can influence prey behavior and distribution in complex ways, altering grazing patterns, reproductive success, and habitat use across entire regions. The ecological role of tiger sharks is therefore deeply context-dependent, shaped by abundance, prey availability, and environmental conditions rather than fixed behavioral scripts. In balanced systems, their presence can create a landscape of fear that regulates prey movement and prevents overexploitation of sensitive habitats. In altered systems, their adaptability allows them to exploit new opportunities rapidly, sometimes amplifying existing imbalances rather than correcting them. This dual potential underscores the power inherent in generalist predators, whose flexibility makes them resilient but also unpredictable. Physiologically, tiger sharks support this lifestyle through metabolic efficiency and digestive robustness, capable of extracting energy from a wide range of tissues without suffering the consequences that might afflict more specialized feeders. Their stomachs can handle tough, fibrous material and large, irregular meals, and their digestive processes adapt to varying nutrient compositions without significant loss of function. This digestive tolerance complements their feeding behavior, ensuring that opportunities are not wasted due to dietary constraints. Movement patterns reflect this adaptability, with tiger sharks often exhibiting broad, looping patrols rather than directed migrations tied to specific prey species. While they do undertake seasonal movements influenced by temperature and reproduction, their feeding does not depend on synchronizing with particular prey runs or blooms. Instead, they remain effective across different habitats and conditions, adjusting depth, proximity to shore, and activity patterns in response to local opportunity. This flexibility reduces reliance on predictable environmental cues, making tiger sharks less vulnerable to change. The unpredictability of tiger shark feeding also influences the behavior of other predators, because their presence introduces competition and risk that can reshape feeding strategies across the ecosystem. More specialized hunters may avoid areas heavily patrolled by tiger sharks, altering their own movement and prey selection to minimize conflict. This displacement effect can have cascading consequences, redistributing predation pressure and reshaping community dynamics in ways that extend far beyond direct interactions. Despite their formidable capabilities, tiger sharks are not immune to energetic constraints, and their opportunistic feeding reflects a careful balance between effort and reward. They do not chase every potential prey item, nor do they engage in prolonged pursuits that offer uncertain outcomes. Instead, they rely on the probability that weakness will eventually appear, trusting in the sheer scale of their patrol areas and the inevitability of mistakes in complex systems. This trust is well-founded, because in large, dynamic ecosystems, error is constant, and generalists are best positioned to exploit it. The broad diet of tiger sharks also means that they can occupy regions where prey diversity is high, but abundance of any single species is low, environments that would challenge specialists dependent on narrow food sources. By converting variety into sustenance, tiger sharks avoid the boom and bust cycles that characterize specialist predators, achieving steadier energy intake across time. This stability supports long lifespans and repeated reproductive opportunities, reinforcing their persistence, even as conditions change. From a behavioral standpoint, this feeding flexibility reduces predictability, not just for prey, but for human observers attempting to categorize tiger sharks based on limited interactions. They do not conform neatly to patterns associated with reef hunters, pelagic predators, or scavengers, because they incorporate elements of all these roles as conditions demand. This fluid identity is both a strength and a challenge, complicating conservation efforts that rely on predictable habitat use and feeding patterns. The tiger shark's adaptability also highlights a broader evolutionary lesson that specialization is not always the optimal path to success, particularly in environments characterized by variability and disturbance. While specialists may outperform generalists under stable conditions, they are often more vulnerable to change, whereas generalists persist by adjusting expectations rather than resisting alteration. The tiger shark embodies this principle, thriving not because it is the best at any single feeding strategy, but because it is good enough at many. As the shark continues its patrol, weaving through currents and along boundaries where ecosystems intersect, its presence serves as a reminder that opportunity in nature is rarely evenly distributed, and that survival often favors those prepared to exploit whatever appears next. A weakened turtle surfacing for air, a dead animal drifting with the tide, a distracted fish straying from shelter, all represent potential meals, and the tiger shark is equipped to convert each into energy without hesitation or specialization. In the end, the tiger shark's feeding strategy resists simple narratives of savagery or indiscrimination, revealing instead a predator finely tuned to uncertainty, capable of persisting where others falter because it does not depend on ideal circumstances. Its broad diet is not a flaw or a lack of discernment, but a deliberate evolutionary solution to a world where conditions change faster than specialization can adapt. It does not need perfect prey, perfect timing, or perfect habitat to succeed, only the existence of something edible within reach. This is what makes the tiger shark so formidable and so difficult to predict, not raw aggression or singular focus, but the ability to turn almost any form of organic matter into survival. In an ocean defined by movement, overlap, and constant flux, this flexibility becomes the ultimate advantage. If food exists, a tiger shark can turn it into calories. The reef becomes quieter when a cuttlefish enters the scene, not because sound disappears, but because signals fail to propagate, visual warnings dissolve, and the normal rules that govern detection and response quietly stop working. In coastal waters, seagrass beds, and sandy flats where light still penetrates, but complexity remains high. Survival for small fish and crustaceans depends on early detection, on seeing movement before it becomes momentum, and on recognizing contrast before it resolves into threat. The cuttlefish is built to erase those cues, to approach without announcing itself, and to turn the moment of recognition into irrelevance. This is not predation driven by pursuit or endurance, but by suppression of information, a feeding strategy that succeeds by deleting the very signals prey rely on to survive. At rest, the cuttlefish barely appears animal at all, its body flattened against the substrate, skin pulsing softly with patterns that match surrounding sand, rock, or algae so precisely that edges lose meaning. Unlike simple color matching, this camouflage is active and dynamic, controlled by layers of chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores that can shift hue, brightness, texture, and contrast independently across the body. The result is not mimicry of a single object, but statistical blending, where the cuttlefish becomes visually average, indistinguishable from background noise rather than perfectly disguised as one specific thing. For prey scanning the environment, this matters more than realism, because escape responses are triggered by anomalies, by edges, motion, and contrast, all of which the cuttlefish suppresses deliberately. This control is not slow or reactive, but continuous and predictive, with skin patterns updating in real time as the animal moves, adjusts angle, or crosses different substrates. As the cuttlefish glides forward, its chromatophores fire in coordinated sequences, breaking up body outlines, flattening shadows, and maintaining optical consistency even while advancing. From the prey's perspective, nothing approaches because nothing resolves as distinct enough to justify flight. This is deception at the sensory level, not disguise as costume, but disguise as absence. The feeding strategy that follows depends entirely on this invisibility, because the cuttlefish does not rely on speed to close distance, nor on overwhelming force to secure prey after detection. Instead, it approaches slowly, incrementally, maintaining camouflage until it occupies the critical range where ballistic capture becomes possible. This range is narrow because the cuttlefish's primary hunting tools are not its arms, but its pair of specialized feeding tentacles, which remain tightly coiled and hidden until the final instant. These tentacles are not used for exploration or manipulation, but for projection, designed to fire forward with explosive speed, seize prey, and retract before the prey's nervous system completes a response loop. When the strike happens, it is mechanical rather than muscular in appearance, driven by rapid extension powered by elastic recoil and precise timing rather than sustained contraction. The tentacles shoot forward in a straight line, their tips expanding into adhesive clubs that latch onto prey instantly, creating secure contact even with slippery, fast-moving fish. This projection happens faster than most prey can react, not because the cuttlefish is faster in general, but because the strike compresses detection, decision, and escape into a window too short to exploit. The prey is not outrun, it is intercepted before escape begins. Once contact is made, the tentacles retract immediately, pulling the prey toward the cuttlefish's arms, which close around it to prevent thrashing or loss. This handoff from tentacles to arms is seamless, a transfer from capture to control that minimizes handling time and exposure. The cuttlefish does not wrestle prey or attempt to subdue it through prolonged struggle, because such struggle would increase risk and attract attention from other predators. Instead, control is achieved through containment, positioning the prey quickly and decisively for processing. Processing itself is handled by the beak, a hard, parrot-like structure hidden at the center of the arms, capable of piercing flesh, cracking exoskeletons, and dismembering prey with precision. Unlike predators that rely on tearing or shaking, the cuttlefish uses targeted bites to disable prey rapidly, focusing on the nervous system or structural weak points. This efficiency reflects a feeding strategy optimized for short encounters, where exposure time is minimized and success is defined by clean execution rather than spectacle. The entire sequence, from approach to ingestion, unfolds in seconds, yet its success is determined long before the strike, during the extended period where the cuttlefish manages perception rather than movement. Feeding success is not about how fast the tentacles move, but about how late the prey realizes anything is wrong. This inversion of priorities separates cuttlefish from pursuit predators and aligns them more closely with ambush hunters. Yet even ambush implies sudden presence, whereas the cuttlefish aims for continued invisibility until capture is complete. This strategy is particularly effective in environments where prey rely heavily on vision and early warning, such as shallow reefs and open sand flats. Fish in these habitats are constantly balancing feeding and vigilance, scanning for changes in light, shadow, and motion that signal danger. The cuttlefish exploits this balance by presenting none of the usual triggers, moving in ways that blend into background flow and adjusting skin patterns to cancel out motion cues. Even eye movement, which could betray intent, is minimized through independent eye control that allows scanning without shifting head position. The neurological control required to coordinate camouflage, movement, and strike timing is substantial, and cuttlefish possess some of the most complex nervous systems among invertebrates. Large portions of their neural processing are dedicated to visual analysis and motor coordination, allowing rapid interpretation of environmental patterns and precise control of body appearance. This cognitive investment supports not just feeding, but learning, as cuttlefish adjust hunting strategies based on experience, prey type, and environmental conditions. One of the most remarkable aspects of cuttlefish feeding behavior is the ability to deploy deception dynamically, not merely blending into the background, but sometimes mimicking specific textures or patterns that mislead prey. By displaying rippling bands or false shadows, cuttlefish can draw attention away from their true body outline, redirecting gaze and creating confusion that further delays recognition. These displays are not constant, but context-dependent, activated when they offer advantage and suppressed when simplicity serves better. The reliance on deception rather than force also influences where cuttlefish choose to hunt, favoring areas with visual complexity and sufficient cover to support camouflage. Open water offers few opportunities, whereas patchy environments with mixed substrates allow the cuttlefish to maintain concealment while closing distance. This habitat preference shapes their distribution and movement patterns, tying feeding success to environmental integrity and complexity. Ecologically, cuttlefish occupy a role as precision predators, targeting individual prey without causing widespread disturbance. Unlike predators that scatter schools or disrupt benthic communities, cuttlefish remove prey quietly, leaving minimal immediate impact beyond absence. This selective pressure favors prey that improve detection sensitivity or alter behavior, contributing to an ongoing evolutionary dialogue centered on perception rather than speed or armor. The cuttlefish's feeding strategy also highlights a broader principle in predator-prey dynamics, that control over information can outweigh control over energy. By managing what prey perceive, the cuttlefish reduces the need for prolonged exertion, allowing it to conserve energy and avoid injury. This efficiency supports a lifestyle that balances hunting with other demands, including reproduction, territoriality, and, in some species, migration between seasonal habitats. Thermoregulation plays a subtle role as well, because cuttlefish are ectothermic and sensitive to temperature changes that influence metabolism and neural performance. Warmer waters can enhance reaction times and camouflage responsiveness, while cooler conditions may constrain activity, shaping seasonal feeding patterns. These physiological constraints reinforce the importance of timing and environment in feeding success, linking biology to oceanographic conditions. The ballistic nature of the tentacle strike introduces risk if misused, because failed strikes expose the cuttlefish momentarily, breaking camouflage and alerting prey and predators alike. As a result, cuttlefish are selective, choosing moments where success probability is high, rather than striking opportunistically. This restraint further underscores the central role of detection management, because the cost of being seen outweighs the benefit of frequent attempts. In rare cases where prey evades the initial strike, the cuttlefish often abandons pursuit, retreating back into camouflage rather than escalating. This decision reflects a feeding philosophy that prioritizes safety and efficiency over persistence, trusting that new opportunities will arise where deception can be re-established. Unlike pursuit predators, cuttlefish do not need to win every encounter to thrive. They need only to maintain a favorable ratio of success to exposure. The cuttlebone, an internal buoyancy structure unique to cuttlefish, also supports this feeding style by allowing fine control over vertical position without continuous fin movement. By adjusting gas and liquid balance within the cuttlebone, the animal can hover motionless at precise depths, eliminating motion that might betray its presence. This ability to remain suspended contributes to the illusion of stillness that precedes successful strikes. As feeding events repeat across days and weeks, the cumulative impact of cuttlefish predation shapes local prey populations subtly, favoring individuals that detect anomalies faster or adopt behaviors less reliant on visual cues alone. This pressure can drive shifts in schooling, coloration, and habitat use, demonstrating how a predator that minimizes disturbance can nonetheless exert significant evolutionary influence. The final image of cuttlefish feeding is not one of violence or struggle, but of subtraction, where something present becomes absent without obvious cause. A fish that moments ago swam freely is suddenly gone, not because it was chased down or overpowered, but because it never saw the attack coming. This quiet efficiency defines the cuttlefish's role in the ecosystem, a predator that wins by arriving unnoticed and leaving nothing behind but silence. In the end, cuttlefish do not feed by dominating space or outlasting prey through endurance, but by controlling perception so completely that resistance never has time to form. Their tentacle strikes are fast, their beaks decisive, but these are secondary to the primary weapon, the ability to approach without existing as a threat until the final moment. Feeding, for a cuttlefish, is not about overwhelming force, but about erasing the warning signs that trigger escape. It eats not by chasing prey down, but by deleting the moment when prey realizes it should run. The first impression of a great white shark moving through open water is not speed, but mass in motion, a steady, deliberate glide that carries enormous potential energy without advertising intent. In coastal zones where cold currents meet productive shelves, the great white occupies a role shaped not by constant pursuit, but by calculated engagement, because this is a predator built to solve one specific problem exceptionally well: how to extract the maximum nutritional payoff from a single encounter while minimizing time, injury, and wasted effort. Everything about its feeding design, from tooth shape to hunting posture, reflects a ruthless efficiency grounded in energy economics rather than spectacle. The mouth of a great white is often framed as its defining feature, and rightly so, because it represents one of the most specialized feeding tools in the ocean. The teeth are large, triangular, and serrated, arranged in multiple rows that function like a conveyor system, with replacements ready to rotate forward whenever a tooth is lost or damaged. This constant renewal allows the shark to apply extreme force without concern for long-term wear, turning each bite into a decisive act rather than a tentative test of resistance. Unlike predators that rely on repeated nips or prolonged grappling, the great white's bite is engineered to remove large, functional chunks of tissue in a single motion, converting resistance into yield almost instantly. This bite design is not about killing prey outright in every case, but about disabling it enough to shift the balance irreversibly. When a great white bites, the outcome is rarely ambiguous, because even a non-fatal bite inflicts catastrophic damage, compromising mobility, blood pressure, and thermoregulation. Large prey, such as seals and sea lions, depend on intact musculature and insulation to survive, and the removal of a significant portion of tissue undermines both immediately. The shark does not need to remain engaged to finish the kill, because the physics of blood loss and shock continue to work in its favor after separation. The concept often described as a test bite fits into this framework of information-driven efficiency rather than hesitation or curiosity. A test bite is not a gentle probe, but a fully functional bite that delivers real damage while simultaneously providing critical data about prey size, composition, and resistance. In a single action, the shark learns whether the prey is worth further investment, whether it poses unusual risk, and whether the energy return justifies continued pursuit. This information gathering is inseparable from the feeding act itself, because the bite that gathers data is the same bite that changes the encounter permanently. From an energetic standpoint, this makes sense in an environment where mistakes carry severe consequences. Large prey are dangerous, capable of inflicting injury through kicks, bites, or defensive maneuvers, and a predator that relies on prolonged contact increases its exposure to harm. By front-loading damage into the first interaction, the great white reduces the need for extended struggle, allowing it to disengage and reassess rather than committing blindly. This behavior reflects a sophisticated cost-benefit analysis unfolding in real time, where the shark weighs the potential gain of high-energy prey against the immediate risks of injury. High-energy prey are central to the great white's feeding strategy because maintaining a large, partially warm-blooded body requires substantial caloric intake. Great whites possess regional endothermy, the ability to elevate muscle and organ temperatures above ambient water through specialized circulatory adaptations. This thermal advantage improves muscle performance and digestion, but it also increases baseline energy demands, making inefficient feeding strategies unsustainable. As a result, great whites prioritize prey that offer dense energy returns, even if those prey are more challenging or risky to capture. Surprise plays a critical role in managing this risk, because the great white does not rely on long chases that would exhaust energy reserves and alert prey prematurely. Instead, it uses vertical space and environmental structure to approach unseen, often attacking from below where contrast and visibility are limited. In these moments, the shark converts gravitational potential and muscle power into a short, explosive burst that closes distance rapidly, delivering the bite before prey can react effectively. This approach compresses pursuit, contact, and outcome into a brief window, reducing the need for sustained exertion. This reliance on surprise rather than speed over distance reflects an understanding of physics as much as biology. Long chases are inefficient in water, where drag increases exponentially with speed, and prey adapted for sustained swimming may outperform a predator over extended distances. By limiting high-speed movement to short bursts, the great white minimizes drag-related energy loss while maximizing the impact of its musculature. This strategy aligns with the shark's body design, which favors powerful acceleration over endurance sprinting. The feeding sequence often unfolds in stages that are invisible to casual observers, beginning with reconnaissance rather than immediate attack. Great whites patrol areas where prey density is high, such as seal colonies, migration routes, and productive coastal shelves, using sensory systems attuned to smell, vibration, and electrical signals to detect potential targets. This patrol phase allows the shark to assess conditions, prey behavior, and environmental variables before committing to an attack, further reducing uncertainty. When an attack occurs, it is rarely followed by frantic pursuit, because the initial bite has already altered the prey's trajectory toward failure. The shark may circle, maintain distance, or even leave the area temporarily, allowing physiological processes to weaken the prey while conserving its own energy. This patience is often misinterpreted as indecision, but it is better understood as strategic restraint, allowing the shark to avoid unnecessary risk while ensuring eventual success. The ecological implications of this feeding strategy extend beyond individual kills, because the presence of a predator capable of such decisive engagement shapes prey behavior and habitat use. Marine mammals alter haul-out patterns, swimming routes, and vigilance levels in response to great white activity, creating a landscape of fear that influences energy expenditure and reproductive success. These indirect effects can be as significant as direct predation, redistributing pressure across ecosystems and preventing overuse of specific areas. From an evolutionary perspective, the great white's feeding design represents a convergence of mechanical power and behavioral intelligence, optimized for environments where prey are large, mobile, and potentially dangerous. Its teeth are not simply sharper than those of other sharks, but configured to handle thick skin, blubber, and bone, materials that demand both cutting and tearing capability. The jaws themselves are reinforced and supported by musculature capable of delivering immense force. Yet this force is applied selectively rather than indiscriminately. The reliance on energy-efficient feeding also explains why great whites are not constant hunters, spending significant time cruising or resting between feeding events. Each successful feeding can provide enough energy to sustain the shark for extended periods, reducing the need for frequent kills. This intermittent feeding pattern aligns with the shark's metabolic profile, balancing high energy bursts with long intervals of low activity. It is important to recognize that this efficiency does not make the great white invulnerable, because injuries sustained during feeding can have long-lasting consequences. Even minor damage to fins, jaws, or sensory organs can impair hunting ability, making risk assessment a critical component of feeding behavior. The shark's apparent caution, including disengaging after initial bites, reflects an understanding, evolved rather than conscious, that survival depends on avoiding damage as much as securing food. The notion that great whites are mindless killers collapses under scrutiny, replaced by a picture of a predator finely tuned to energy management and risk mitigation. Each bite represents a decision, informed by sensory input and experience, that balances immediate gain against potential cost. This decision-making does not require complex reasoning in the human sense, but it does require neural systems capable of integrating multiple streams of information rapidly and effectively. As ocean conditions change, the great white's feeding strategy may prove both resilient and vulnerable. Its reliance on high-energy prey ties it to ecosystems that support marine mammals and large fish, making it sensitive to declines in those populations. At the same time, its ability to travel long distances and exploit different regions provides flexibility, allowing it to adjust spatial patterns rather than feeding mechanics in response to change. The final image of a great white feeding is often reduced to the moment of impact, the breach, the splash, the visible violence that captures attention. Yet the true story unfolds before and after that instant, in the calculations that lead to the bite and the consequences that follow. The shark does not feed continuously or indiscriminately, but in punctuated events that maximize return while minimizing exposure. In this context, the mouth is indeed a weapon, but it is only one component of a broader strategy centered on energy optimization. Teeth and jaws deliver the necessary force, but the decisions that determine when and how that force is applied matter more than raw power alone. The great white does not win by chasing longer, biting more often, or fighting harder, but by choosing moments where success is most likely and cost is lowest. Ultimately, the feeding behavior of the great white shark reveals a predator shaped by constraints rather than excess. A hunter whose dominance arises from alignment between anatomy, behavior, and environment. It removes large chunks quickly, not out of aggression, but out of necessity, converting brief encounters into long-term sustenance. In the end, the mouth delivers the damage, but the guiding principle is energy, measured, conserved, and spent only when the return is worth the risk. The reef does not reward speed in the way open water does, because here distance collapses quickly, sightlines break apart, and escape routes terminate in stone, coral, and shadow. Movement is constrained by geometry rather than endurance, and survival depends less on how fast an animal can swim than on whether it can react in time when space itself becomes a trap. This is the environment that shaped the grouper, a predator whose feeding strategy is not about chasing prey across open distances, but about exploiting the physics of confined space with ruthless precision. On a reef, success belongs to the animal that understands how water moves through tight corridors, how fear drives prey into predictable routes, and how to turn a fraction of a second into an irreversible outcome. At first glance, a grouper appears almost lazy, hovering near ledges or resting close to the substrate with a bulk that seems ill-suited for pursuit. Its body is thick, muscular, and compact, built more like a boulder than a missile, with broad fins designed for control rather than sustained speed. This apparent sluggishness is deceptive, because the grouper is not a predator of distance, but of moments, evolved to dominate interactions that occur within a body length or less. In these compressed encounters, acceleration and maneuverability matter far less than timing and force application, and this is where the grouper excels. The defining mechanism behind grouper feeding is suction, a rapid expansion of the mouth and gill cavity that creates a powerful pressure differential, pulling water and prey inward faster than prey can swim away. This action is not simply opening the jaws, but a coordinated mechanical event involving the lowering of the jaw, expansion of the buccal cavity, and flaring of the gill covers, all synchronized to maximize water inflow. The speed of this expansion is critical because it determines how abruptly pressure drops, and in a reef environment, where prey are often only centimeters away, that drop happens before any meaningful escape response can occur. To prey animals, suction feeding does not feel like being chased or bitten, but like being erased from their position, because there is no warning phase where the predator approaches visibly. A fish hovering near a ledge or peeking out from a crevice may register the grouper's presence as background until the instant the water around it accelerates violently toward the predator's mouth. At that point, the prey's own swimming ability becomes irrelevant, because it is no longer moving through still water, but being carried by a current it did not anticipate. Reaction time vanishes, replaced by involuntary transport. This feeding method dominates reef systems precisely because of their spatial complexity, where prey rely on short bursts of movement into shelter rather than sustained swimming to survive. Small reef fish dart between holes, coral branches and overhangs, assuming that proximity to cover equals safety. The grouper weaponizes this assumption by positioning itself where cover funnels movement, at cave mouths, ledge edges, and narrow passages that prey must pass through to reach refuge. In these choke points, suction feeding becomes devastatingly effective because the prey's options collapse into a single direction, straight toward the predator. The grouper's mouth is proportionally large, with thick lips and a wide gape that allows it to engulf prey whole rather than tear or process it externally. Like many reef predators, groupers swallow prey headfirst when possible, minimizing resistance from fins and spines and allowing ingestion to happen smoothly. The teeth, while present, are secondary tools, designed to grip rather than slice, because the real work has already been done by suction. Once prey crosses the threshold of the mouth, escape is no longer a question of speed or strength, but of physics, and physics has already decided the outcome. What separates groupers from many other suction feeders is not just raw power, but behavioral intelligence applied to space. Groupers do not drift randomly across reefs hoping prey will blunder into range, but learn the layout of their territory with remarkable consistency. They memorize patrol routes, identify productive ledges, and return repeatedly to locations where prey traffic is predictable. These locations are not chosen at random, but based on how reef architecture shapes movement, forcing prey to emerge briefly from cover or pause before committing to a dash. Over time, groupers refine their use of these sites, adjusting position, angle, and timing based on experience. A grouper may hover slightly below a cave entrance rather than directly in front of it, exploiting the tendency of prey to look outward for threats, while assuming the interior is safe. Others position themselves above ledges, taking advantage of vertical blind spots created by light gradients and shadow. This spatial literacy allows groupers to feed efficiently without constant movement, conserving energy while maintaining dominance over key zones. The intelligence involved in this strategy is not abstract problem solving, but applied pattern recognition, the ability to associate specific structures with feeding success and to anticipate prey behavior based on context. Groupers are known to revisit successful hunting sites repeatedly, and in some cases to coordinate with other predators such as moray eels to flush prey from cover. In these cooperative interactions, the grouper uses its bulk and presence to block escape routes, while the moray invades crevices, driving prey into the open where suction feeding can be deployed. This collaboration highlights how grouper feeding is integrated into broader reef dynamics rather than operating in isolation. Physiologically, suction feeding requires precise coordination and muscular control, because generating sufficient pressure differential demands rapid and synchronized movement of multiple skeletal elements. The grouper's skull is built with flexibility that allows expansion without compromising structural integrity, and the musculature controlling jaw and gill movements is robust enough to repeat this action many times without fatigue. This capability supports a feeding style that relies on bursts of intense activity separated by periods of stillness, aligning with the reef's rhythm of sudden encounters amid long stretches of waiting. Energy efficiency is a central advantage of this approach because suction feeding minimizes pursuit costs and reduces exposure to injury. Chasing prey through coral is dangerous, increasing the risk of collision, entanglement, or ambush by other predators. By letting prey come within range and then exploiting a momentary opening, groupers avoid these risks, achieving high capture success with relatively low energy expenditure. This efficiency supports their large body size and long lifespans, allowing them to persist as dominant reef residents over many years. The dominance of suction feeding on reefs also influences prey evolution, favoring behaviors and morphologies that reduce susceptibility to sudden pressure changes. Some prey species develop stronger burst swimming capabilities, improved sensory awareness, or altered habitat use to avoid known grouper territories. Others adopt schooling behaviors that reduce individual risk, though even schools can be vulnerable at choke points where group cohesion breaks down. This ongoing evolutionary exchange shapes the diversity and behavior of reef communities, with suction feeding acting as a selective force as powerful as any physical weapon. Environmental conditions can modulate the effectiveness of grouper feeding, because visibility, current, and habitat complexity influence how prey move and perceive danger. In turbid water, suction feeding may be even more effective, as reduced visibility limits early detection, while in high current areas, water movement can either enhance or disrupt pressure gradients depending on orientation. Groupers adjust to these conditions by selecting feeding sites that maintain reliability, reinforcing the importance of environmental knowledge over brute force. Thermoregulation plays a subtler role in grouper feeding because as ectothermic animals, their muscle performance and reaction times are influenced by water temperature. Warmer waters generally enhance suction speed and coordination, increasing feeding success, while cooler conditions may slow movements and reduce efficiency. Seasonal changes in temperature can therefore influence feeding frequency and site selection, linking grouper behavior to broader oceanographic patterns. The grouper's impact on reef ecosystems extends beyond individual predation events, because by controlling prey populations in specific areas, they help regulate grazing pressure and competition. By removing fish that would otherwise consume algae or invertebrates, groupers indirectly influence coral health and spatial composition, contributing to the balance between growth and erosion that defines reef structure. In this way, grouper feeding behavior is a form of ecosystem engineering, shaping not just who survives, but how the reef itself develops over time. Despite their power, groupers are vulnerable to disruption, particularly from overfishing, which removes large individuals that hold territorial knowledge and feeding sites. Loss of these dominant predators can lead to cascading effects, as prey populations expand unchecked or shift behavior, altering reef dynamics in ways that may take decades to reverse. This vulnerability underscores the importance of understanding grouper feeding, not just as an isolated behavior, but as a keystone process within reef ecosystems. The contrast between open ocean predators and reef predators becomes stark when observing a grouper feed, because there is no long chase, no visible acceleration across distance, and no dramatic struggle. Instead, there is stillness, alignment, and a sudden, almost imperceptible event where water surges and prey vanishes. To the untrained eye, it may appear uneventful, yet it represents the culmination of anatomical specialization, learned behavior, and environmental exploitation. As the grouper resumes its position near a ledge or cave mouth after feeding, the reef continues its motion around it, smaller fish re-emerging cautiously, currents resuming their gentle flow. The feeding event leaves no obvious trace beyond absence, no debris or blood, only a subtle shift in the local balance of life. This quiet efficiency defines the grouper's role as a predator built not for spectacle, but for control. In the end, the grouper exemplifies a feeding strategy perfectly matched to the geometry of the reef, where success depends on understanding space rather than dominating it. By using suction to turn proximity into capture, and by learning the landscape well enough to anticipate prey movement, groupers convert complexity into advantage. They do not need speed over distance, because distance does not exist in the same way on a reef. What matters is the moment when water moves faster than muscle, when escape routes converge, and when reaction time fails. This is feeding shaped by ambush geometry rather than pursuit, a system where patience and placement outperform acceleration and endurance. On a reef, where everything happens close and fast, vacuum beats speed.